His name's Rhapsody. My name's Sneaky Teak, and this is Rhaps and Teak Take a Peek, coming at you this week with Legend of Keepers. Rhapsody, how you doing?
I could not be doing better. Frankly, I am really, really keen to be playing this game. It's one that I feel I accidentally dismissed for a longer period of time than I necessarily should have.
It's been floating around for a while, actually. This is not brand new release. It's been out for a bit.
It definitely has. Although I will say it is in early access at the moment, although it is coming to its full release period on April 29th, upcoming soon. This being
maybe
recorded.
It's more timely than I thought.
It is.
You lose track of what's early access as a content creator for indies and for rogues, right? It's like we'll have games that we've been streaming for months and then we realize that they're early access. And it's just such a blurred line at this point.
It really is. It really is. Although I will say, like, a lot of people have early access as their kind of like, I won't necessarily approach this for a period of time. I don't stick with that because I've played a lot of Clay games, and Clay games in early access are basically released like Game of the Year editions.
They
for
just
some
haven't
of the
finished
studios.
all their content, right? Or they haven't done all the voice acting or something. But the house is there.
Yes, definitely, especially in Clay's circumstances consistently. But the reason that I'd been avoiding Legend of Keepers, I think, is because it has a condition that I see a lot of indie games have similarly at the moment of very generic word, small adjoining word, another generic word. Now, sure, you can include Slay the Spire
we've joked
possibly
about
in
this,
but also like mine, block, craft the worlds, Legend of Keepers, Slay the Spire. Like there is definitely a format that emerges there, and sometimes my eyes kind of glaze over, and they definitely shouldn't.
It's kind of
here.
like band names. I really think it's a fad kind of thing. You know what I mean? And we're currently in. There's almost a fad of, you know, there were 2 decades of the X band names, and now we're in the fad of noun of noun.
Yeah.
Noun of noun is the current phase of video games. Yeah.
Very, very much. Although, now that I've escaped that and had a little bit of a look at the Steam page, I'm definitely finding myself a lot more keen, a lot more excited for it. Would you like to tell us a little bit about what you found on the Steam page?
What an incredible segue.
Thank you.
So the Steam, you just put me right up to bat, huh? I don't even have to do any work here, folks. Like, genuinely, I just sit and wait for Rhaps to give me directives. Red, green, hand go up. So on Steam, the game is described as Legend of Keepers is the perfect mix between dungeon management and roguelite. You've been hired as a dungeon master by the Dungeons Company. Your job is simple: protect their dungeons. The goal here was to put dungeon at least one time in every sentence, I think, sometimes twice. This is a very vague description, but I know a little bit more about this game because in this case, I actually watched a little bit of it quite a while ago, though. I think it's changed significantly since then. And at the time, I dismissed it a little bit too because I was a bit... it felt like I was starting to chafe against a very, very large wave of Are We the Baddies games.
Yeah.
That also became popular in the last few years, which is, it's X game that you like, but this time you're the bad guy, right? And it's like, I think it was an interesting theme, and it started to feel like a fad too. It started to feel like everyone was doing it. But I'm starting to realize that there are a lot of different Are We the Baddies games, right? There's Are We the Bad Guys, moral ambiguity a la Witcher. There's Are We the Bad Guys, I'm a demon overlord and I'm like pillaging towns. What's that game? It was called like Tyranny or something like that, or
yes. Yes, it was called exactly
game?
Tyranny by Obsidian Studios.
Yeah.
The RPG came out in, I want to say 2014. It might be 16.
Okay.
Don't shoot me.
Okay, and then there was a different one that was almost more like Pikmin, except you were evil. Maybe that was Overlord, or maybe that's an anime. There's a lot of
Overlord is also a game
stuff.
that has that
It's a
kind
game?
of realm
Okay.
to it, yeah.
Okay. What this one is, and is actually less of Are We the Baddies, it's a different type of genre that I saw coming up, which is the flip the dungeon game. Instead of being an adventuring party that goes into a dungeon that's been established, you are the dungeon master and you're controlling the dungeon. You're building it out. There's a few other games like this. And so it ends up being kind of a puzzle, or even in a way that kind of tower defense style of, how can I play the nemesis? How do I react to the adventuring parties who are coming in? And what kind of traps and trials and enemies can I put in front of them to make sure they lose. I want to make sure that they die before they manage to plunder the loot, right? So that's all I know, though. That's it. It's a roguelite. You're a dungeon master. You put out units. You level them. There's events, but that's the extent of my knowledge.
Yeah, that I definitely align with the deluge of those that came out at the time.
Yeah, it was a
But
lot, right? For a while. Oh, you're doing evil stuff. You're evil. Whoa.
It was really omnipresent. But then I think backwards and I'm like, Overlord is a series that's been running since the 1990s.
Right.
It's quite old. And then, you know, I think of other examples like Lord of the Rings: The Third Age had a campaign where you go through in normal and then a campaign as you go through in evil. And it feels like maybe this is just the start of us experiencing this in like more dungeon management. Well, not necessarily dungeon management.
Just
again,
in a new
roguelike
genre,
either.
right?
Exactly. Maybe what we're feeling is this being re-included in a new world.
I'm
Now,
not allergic to it. I'm excited for the game. I suggest it this week for what it's worth. We discuss this every week, but this one's just been on my mind. I've been trying to find a place to check it out for quite a while, so I'm stoked.
you and I both, especially because a lot of the time when I look at a dungeon management game, and especially a game that is trying to evoke in some ways similarities to things like Darkest Dungeon, I often look at those and go, well, that's a time investment that I'm either doing none of it or I'm doing 100 hours of it, and there's no in between. But here is our in between. This is where we get to take a peek.
Take a peek.
It's titular.
This game, by the way, I don't know for sure that we'll finish a complete run. We'll see. You know, I honestly don't know how the game has changed. It's not a Darkest Dungeon level campaign length. It is intended to be like single session rogue, as I recall. But there's a chance that they're quite long. I really don't know. So we'll see.
Yes, exactly. The kind of format that we've set up so far of having finality to most episodes, save the one recent where we didn't complete the entire game because, you know, it's not quantized in individual runs, is not necessarily going to be a thematic component of every single episode in this series, because sometimes taking a peek needs to be less than 5 hours.
Listen, we are very thorough peekers.
I think we're still on the top end of what can be called a peak, but it's such a good rhyme that we have to continue it. I also really do like to quickly go through the settings at the very start. We have the language and game settings there. Don't necessarily understand the game settings, but obviously language settings. We actually have like a surprisingly large amount of quality settings for this. And despite my new rig, 3070, the chip, like the CPU literally came out this month. Like, it's despite my PC, it auto set me to medium. So if you are going to play the game, make sure that you set it yourself. It's not necessarily auto adjusting. It does have disable screen shake, and I know that's an accessibility feature that is important for a lot of people. So that is there. We've even got the windowed full screen, and then individual gameplay and gamepad sliders. All right, I think there's nothing else to do except for click the play button.
Speed up some heroes.
Ooh.
Saves, huh?
Create a new save slot at the very top there. Because you don't get the audio, I will tell you if any narration is about to start.
Donka.
Congratulations and welcome to the Dungeons Company.
It's narrating.
As you saw on the job posting, your main task is to protect the treasures we keep in our dungeons. We don't have much time to spend training you, so please keep up.
Okay, because it's narrating, I'm just going to take a slight moment to boost its volume such that y'all in the audience can hear the narration.
Heroes keep coming to try and take our treasures. The marketing team has worked hard to promise gold and glory to these idiotic adventurers. We have a little time before they get here, so let's place our traps and our employees to prepare a defense.
Okay, so they're definitely going for, like, theming of a company as well. The marketing team, we've got a little time before they get here. The employees, obviously, is the reference.
But what's interesting is they're marketing to their victims. They're marketing to heroes.
Oh, so is this, like, are we serving a purpose in kind of like an escape room format? Like, are we, like, come test yourselves against our rogues?
We'll have to see, what the heroes look like when they inevitably perish to decide if we're an escape room.
Place a trap. Okay, so we have traps at the very top, and then one there, one there. These are just
And those are units.
Units individually. They are not the units that we have on board, although it doesn't look like I can summon them in any way. then we've got finally a master. It doesn't look like this is super interactable at the moment, so let's go to the...
I think that's the rooms. I think that's the rooms. I think that the room 1, room 2, fight room, boss room. That's like, those are the rooms that the heroes will step through. And in the trap room, we can choose a trap. In the monster room, we get to choose the monsters.
Right. Okay. So we're progressing through non-combatively through these
Yes.
initially, or at least is the assumption. Is that an assumption,
Yeah,
or is
we
that
get to
just
set
what
it
you
all
know of it?
I remember, so the game has changed quite a bit since I watched it a long time ago. But what I remember is that you could lay out all of the rooms in advance. You get to see who the heroes are that are coming. So we know the enemies here have like a warrior, a rogue, and an archer. And then you get to choose the traps and the enemies in advance.
Oh, so the warrior, rogue, and archer, these are the heroes that we're seeing
Yes,
directly in
yes.
front of us. Ah,
Yeah, they're
okay.
gonna go left to right to try to get through our 2 trap rooms and then our enemy rooms. Yeah, exactly.
I'm just going to quickly see if there is any key bindings specifically. Not specifically. So I don't know all of the stats that we're seeing at the bottom there. Obviously, we have health. Obviously, below that, probably damage. Across from that, speed. And then further up than that, I'm going to say morale or stress.
Yes, I recall that you can get them out either by... They're basically 2 kill stats. You can either actually kill them or you can demoralize them to the point to where they flee.
Yep.
And either works.
I really like the dual health bar system. My first introduction to it was not Dungeons and Dragons, although
Darkest Dungeons and Dragons.
yeah, it was Darkest Dungeon, but also like taking stress and mental damage and things like that exist, but you know, it's usually from a central pool in those. I like the split system of it. I think it is something that, as we were talking about in the Goblin Stone video, we were talking about things that become second nature, kind of the language of gaming, and it seems like it is moving in that direction. I'm nothing but excited to see that there. We also see stats of their defense. So this unit is weak, takes 20% more damage against ice, and has 20% extra block against armor, 10% against nature, and then we can see finally their abilities. Yes?
The armor, I guess that's a protection value then? 20% of regular damage is blocked? Okay, so they're all just
I imagine so.
values. Okay.
That one's probably just against physical as well, if I had to guess.
Right.
And then we can see a similar kind of like positional-based party system of this is a unit that can attack the back line for 40 physical damage, or it can dodge the activations of the first regular trap encounter.
Okay, so it's not going to be easy to take out Charon with a trap.
Would you like to read the specific skills for the other 2 characters?
Sure. So we have Solya, who appears to be some kind of rogue, weak to fire, but with a bit of resistance to ice, nature, and physical damage, and also weakness to air. Looks like this unit has a bit less morale than our other, and maybe is a bit weaker than the archer, but faster, if we're assuming that that's speed.
They do more damage.
They have a regular front attack that also is dealing nature damage and poison, which is curious. And their skill is apply poison to the monster with the highest life at the start of each fight, which is dealing some amount of nature damage on subsequent turns.
That gives us a little bit of information along the lines of if we have the most healthy unit in our battle has nature protection, then it is going to more easily avoid the poison from Solya there.
Yep.
Super cool.
And then there's Valkrom, who has the highest health but the lowest morale of the team. Maybe we scare this one away. Fairly low damage, fairly low speed, but presumably a fairly tanky lad. Like I said, a lot of health, also resistant to fire damage, to physical damage, and to air damage, with a fairly major weakness to ice and a lesser weakness to nature damage. Front, 30 physical damage, and apply broken armor, which reduces armor and therefore probably resistance to physical damage. That's their regular attack. And then their skill is applies enraged to all heroes at the start of each fight. Damage and morale dealt increased by 30%. So he's going to buff the team as well.
I seem to be getting from this a little bit of information about the way that stacks work here. We can see a debuff stack in broken armor, and it has a 3 next to it, but the effect does not seem to be modified by that. It's just armor is reduced by 40. So my assumption here is 3 turns of that effect. However, enraged as a buff says after damage and morale dealt increased by 30%, and then that's 10 by 3. I wonder if it's by the amount of stacks, it's just 10% per. So first turn it's 30, second turn it's 20, then it's 10, then it's nothing.
Yeah. The number is the number of turns, but it might also be a modifier. That's cool.
And then finally,
so it looks like we only
this
have one
bone
trap right
catapult.
now.
Making our decision quite easy. That one probably just goes down. It has area of effect attack. It attacks all 3 spaces. It applies -10 morale and demoralize 2. So it's a bone catapult that doesn't deal any damage. It's just stress or morale loss, rather.
Yeah, which means that the archer has a void trap, so the archer will avoid this. Can we now go to the right and set up the next room? Is there an arrow somewhere, like over to the side or something, or can you click into the next room, perhaps?
That is a speed modifier. I think they resolve each individual room. I don't know if we can go forward first.
Oh, weird. Okay. Well, then we'll fight. If we must fight, then we'll fight.
We always leave an empty room in every dungeon. You can use it to ambush the adventurers with one of your favorite spells.
Oh, okay. So this is not beginning the combat.
Some rooms are dedicated to combat. This is my favorite bit. Make sure you analyze each group of adventurers. Your employees are counting on you to prepare an effective strategy. Pay attention to combatants' attacks and resistances. They are key elements for victory.
So they're not progressing through the dungeon as we click confirm. That's just confirming the setup for it. They're just included here so we can see their stats.
So that we can constantly refer back to the potential party, right? Got it.
All right. I will take Brujo at the very start here. Brujo is a orc. Instead of having a morale stat, Brujo has 7 out of 7 steins of beer. I am now intensely envious of Brujo. They are weak against fire and air, specifically against fire, taking 50% extra damage to that. Strong against the rest, strongest against nature, and being the brute, they most likely have the most HP, which it seems like they're trying to get us in this tutorialized setting
to win.
To utilize the value of having the most nature defense on the healthiest hero. They have 2 abilities, a front attack. Okay, so the positional thing is inverted on each side. So this front designates the front of the enemy party, Valkrom. 35 physical damage applies bleeding 2, -10 life on the next turn, 5 by 2. So again, I'm assuming that's 10 life lost and then 5 life lost. And then after that, morale. Morale loss in AoE. That's very likely to go in the front position. Would you like to read Dodium and Fade?
Dojum, sure. This is Dojum, who has only 6 steins of beer and slightly less life at 90. Resistant to fire damage, neutral nature, resistant to air, but weak against ice and physical damage. So, hoping to not get hit. This unit looking like maybe they go in the middle so that they don't get hit by front or back attacks. They have a back attack themselves, which does fire damage and also reduces morale if the target is affected by at least 2 penalties. Now, we would, in theory, be getting penalties from the trap room before this, but I think that the archer is dodging that. So maybe we can get them with either Brujo or by our spell. And then their special is an area effect that's removed, that is minus morale and also applies demoralized, which I'm understanding minus morale is like health damage. It's permanent unless it gets healed. Demoralized is a temporary minus morale effect. But I would guess, see, because it's -9 morale and applies demoralized 2, which says -10 morale on the next turn, 5 by 2. The question is, does that morale then come back as demoralized goes away?
I'm reading that as a poison, but for
like a dot. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
And then finally Fade.
Little Fade, with the smallest health so far, only 60. Weak to fire, weak to nature, strong against air, neutral ice, strong against physical damage, -30 morale to the front target, and a back attack that's 40 air damage and applies demoralize 3. So a front attacker and a back attacker focusing on demoralizing. Cool.
Definitely seems like they've given these to us
They're set up in order.
place, click to place, click to place. I will also say, as we mentioned previous, we kind of want to get Valkrom scared. And the fade is also directly accounting for that, negative 30 morale to the front line. So yeah, it very much looks like the tutorial. They are setting us up with very few choices we get to make, but I'm encouraged by the fact that we cottoned on to the choices before we even saw the monsters that we were going to be able to deploy, which tells me that our learnings are the game's trying to teach us those, but a little bit further down the line, which tells me we understand the
Being
systems a little bit.
meticulous. It pays off. And then that's the boss room.
Ah, right.
Dodged.
So we saw our dodge.
So we're allowed to cast a spell here, huh?
We only have one at the moment. Applies Enrage 3 to the next group of monsters, so... let's do
Nice.
that.
And we should try to pay attention to that demoralize debuff that we gave them to see if the morale
Job
sticks
also
around
involves
or not,
bullying
right? Like
these
if it's a dot versus
insignificant
temporary.
humans. No reason work can't be fun.
Oops.
You can of
all
course kill them or terrify them so much they'll flee like peasants, as you see fit. Don't forget that in battles, the fastest combatants act first.
So the fastest combatants act first. That's... sometimes there is a randomness included, like your speed, and then it's plus or minus 8 based on how the dice rolls, or there's like the initiative systems that we saw recently. I saw it previously in Other Side, and then we saw it again in Goblin Stone, where your individual units have the ability to take actions that move them far enough away from the mid of the timeline based on the power of the action. Here it is just straight up fastest acts first. So you're going to have the ability to solve the fight a lot more of the time before you encounter it, which for the design of this makes a lot of sense.
Makes sense, right? Because it's kind of a puzzle. Good luck, fighters.
There's our poison. Oh, okay, so it's actually giving me individual control over the monsters. This is not an auto battle
As
that
they
resolves. Which makes sense.
That's cool. But it's only letting you choose scare. It's not letting you choose the back attack.
Yeah, exactly. I wonder why that is.
Me also. I also wonder this.
I don't have any reason to expect that I wouldn't be able to cast that. We don't see any resource that's required.
It might just be tutorial.
It might be, definitely.
If you got to choose your moves, you might lose.
Ooh, okay, so different levels of the unit's morale also give different effects. So as they've taken more morale damage, they are more vulnerable to damage as well. They also lose 15% of a hero's maximum morale when another hero is defeated. So that's off the maximum, not off of their current or anything like that. And then they gain 5% of the hero's maximum back when landing the final blow on a monster.
This is pretty cool. It's interesting that if you can get them down to frantic, they take almost double damage, which means that really hybrid strats are probably pretty effective.
Yes, that is the big takeaway there, that hybrid strats are being encouraged.
We're gonna scare this warrior away.
Okay, so the enraged stat did work, as we'd previously said. It is 10 by the amount of stacks that you have left.
Got it, and it's going down 1 a turn.
Yes, I want to see if the demoralized here doesn't come back, although I would be surprised if it did.
We'll see.
They've run out of their
back,
debuff,
so
they didn't get it back yet.
Yeah. So it's a dot. It's a morale dot. Good call. And that's gonna be a spooked warrior. Bye.
We might lose our brute though. And ghost.
And our wraith.
Oh, well, yeah, we wouldn't get to see the boss fight if we won.
Welcome to my torture room.
All right. Good luck, bad guys. Maug.
Our character is Maug, the slaveholder. They have a truly ridiculous amount of HP. They've got decent stats otherwise. They have a front attack for 80 physical damage. So is that not going to be able to hit because the front is unoccupied, or have they moved forwards?
I think, well, we should try it, but I think they move forwards. Like, I think it's always basing front on the current setup. That's what happened after we started losing units, at least. Because
Okay.
otherwise the front attacks wouldn't have been able to hit our midline ever, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. We have a front attack for 80 physical damage, regenerates the master's life by 20% of the damage dealt if the target is affected by bleeding. We also have an area attack
Nice.
for 24 air damage to all units. It also applies 3 stacks of bleeding, which are each 5 life on the next turn, so 15, 10, 5. And then the final is 40 morale lost from the front line. I mean, we can set up for a whiplash by starting with
Yeah.
enslavement, which kills the backline. I think that's
That seems like an ideal play.
obvious. Give him the
Challenge or
business.
to whiplash. Just give him the business.
You did it! I knew from the start that you had potential. Know that here in Dungeons Company, we reward talent and value ambition. Shoot for the moon. And so, your training ends. I'll see you again next year for your annual evaluation. If you do a good job in protecting our treasures, you'll get the promotion you deserve.
All right. End of the tutorial for us.
It's a
In we go.
Ooh. Okay, so it looks like we have different masters that we can select from. Slaveholder is unlocked by default. I'm not necessarily going to read through all of the flavor text because we already bloat the game a lot by talking about everything else. I will
Existing.
leave it on screen though.
It's
For
the
anyone
Rhaps Teak modifier. We go to time to beat, and then we multiply by between 1.5 and 2.
Mm-hmm. Ooh. Okay, so there's a meta level talent tree out here as well. Just going to take a very brief overview of this one because it's going to be important mechanically. When a monster is defeated, chance to gain shell, which reduces damage from attacks by 20%. Interesting.
Got it.
Chance to gain enrage, so chance to gain stats. Damage taken by the master is reduced by 10% for each remaining hero, and then the top level of that is master gains a bunch of speed. 10 to all resistances. Bleeding damage dealt to heroes is increased. Grants a 50 to then 100% chance to gain enraged each time you take damage. If the master is
That's
fighting
cool.
by themselves, that seems quite powerful.
Hmm.
Whiplash does more, Burning Whip does more, Intimidation affects more morale. Okay, yeah, these seem like straight modifiers on the majority of the things. Grants each monster in garrison a 15 to 30... Okay, so these are related to the master. These are not. These are related to the other monsters.
Interesting. Gives you extra monsters, makes the garrison more effective. Those are kind of like base upgrades, and the left is master upgrades effectively. How
Yeah.
nasty is your end game? And
Definitely
I think
seems
that
collected that way.
the first thing that comes to my mind with the left side talents is making sure that we're taking talents that solve the actual problems. So we have a whole dungeon before they get to the master, right? And which means in good cases we are not fighting the entire enemy squad. We've hopefully weakened them. Either we've killed one or two, or they're at least significantly debuffed. And so making sure that we build a talent tree such that we are taking advantage of a weakened party rather than kind of trying to kill a party in a vacuum is something I'm thinking about.
Yeah, I agree. How do we do that best? Because actually, this isn't even
don't
directly
know.
related to the master. It is in this tree, but it's a 20% chance to apply Demoralize 2 to traps that deal morale.
Okay, so there's non-master stuff. Sometimes this bottle gives me like very significant splashback, and all of a sudden it looks like I just came out of Hurricane Harbor. Drinking is really, really tough. It's a miracle I ever win a video game, because this is the hardest problem in my day.
I cannot agree more. Specifically, I found a lot recently. So I have these kind of carafe style bottles. I have like 4 of them in rotation. I just fill them with water at the start of the day, and at the end of the day, I refill them. But it has the ability for its cap to sit like this, and it comfortably, or at least on the other ones, comfortably sits like that consistently. And then I try and drink from it, and this is just preventing my mouth from making contact. I have, the end of this is I have poured a lot of liters of water just directly on top of myself, sometimes whilst recording. And, you know, usually it would run down the front of my shirt, but if I'm recording, I've got a lap at the bottom of my shirt. Not necessarily the best experience.
Not ideal.
Not at all. Intimidation
my-
deals 10.
If I were to follow my gut, hard segue. If I were to follow my gut, just my intuition here, I would either start upgrading the garrison right here and just go for base upgrades because, like, I imagine we'll beat the first levels, or I would go for the middle one, which gives us intimidate, or rather enrage on hit. I'm good with either of those.
I like the enrage on hit because it happens 100% of the time with the second level, but it's 50% of the time by base, whereas a lot of these other ones are 10-20% chance. Like, the possibility that we just straight up whiff an entire dungeon and not hit that ever is a bit high for my tastes. But garrison is interesting as well.
And getting free units up at the top is pretty cool too.
I think maybe let's focus around this line, but we don't necessarily have to set that in just yet. Our first mission here, by default, we have a goblin, an orc. I'm not going to read through all of these stats. Skeleton archer, orc, a magus, and a yetigo. Okay, it looks like by default, actually, I have all of these. This is a full segment. It's not two different lines. And then we have rallying horn, bone.
Those are traps.
Yeah, circular saw as well. It's not going to tell us anything about our spells, I don't think. Archivist is showing us some different relics, artifact system, I imagine. All right. Unless we want to throw this in. I mean, we could totally just throw this in.
We should just pick something.
Let's do it.
We're not gonna be able to have the most informed talent build on our first run.
It's very, very true. Although I will say, one level in this does not unlock the next set, so it's full level something before you can progress. Okay. Exactly. All right, let's just jump into
good knowledge.
First dungeon. The reward as well is a satyr, a new unit for us. But
Let's get to work.
Did it look like they were splitting
Welcome
paths
to the
later?
company, Mog. I am delighted to have you with us. We'll need your fabled management techniques. We're putting you in charge of a little team in the old empire, a region overrun by humans. It's up to you to gather the monsters in the area and teach them how to defend themselves. Turn them into great employees, ready to give their lives multiple times for the company.
Interesting. Choose a task. Week 1, adventurers. Week 2, we have more things to choose from. So this is kind of like our node kind of path. Just one quick question though. The splitting at the end of the tree. What was the question?
So it looked like there was a map that we were walking along. And did you see if it had any divergences? Were there any split paths on that? Or is it a linear map? And this is the only thing that's okay. This is the part that I remember from the time that I watched, was this system.
I did think it was linear.
Okay.
Behind you,
this one is
though,
not, though.
At the moment, blood gathered from hero tears. Okay, so there are actually resources behind you. So what I'm going to do is just offset you a little bit higher than myself. And that looks like that's sitting pretty reasonably in line there. Okay, good.
Yes. All of my goods.
Behind me is the master, so I'm just going to be like the whole time kind of cosplaying them. Your blood. So this is blood gathered from heroes killed. There is also tears gathered from heroes scared. Okay, so that's from murder, obviously, and demoralizing, and then gold rules the world.
That looks pretty good. It usually upsets me to float, but it's kind of setting me right on this desk. It actually looks nice. Although it now seems that you're peering up at me ever so slightly.
Oh, so wait, in that meta level, that desk needs to... Okay, that's okay. That's okay. I can just move you down there. That's fine. I thought that was going to be consistent through all the rest of it. Okay, so we have Zardnan, a priestess who's in the front line. She is weak to nature and fire, extremely resistant to ice, quite resistant to air, and then armor thereafter. They deal 45 air damage to the front line, and they have a skill to replace one of her penalties with a bonus 3 at the start of her turn once.
Got it.
Bonus 3 at the start of her turn once.
You know what? I know what that means.
Oh.
So in this game, I think, based on what I'm reading right here, okay, this is I'm extrapolating. every buff has a debuff, right? So there's enraged, which is the bonus. You're getting more damage. And then there's an offset, right?
Mhm.
And so I think what this skill is saying is it takes something like demoralized and flips it. Instead of losing morale, you're gaining morale for 3 turns. That's my guess, but we'll see.
That seems like a relatively accurate guess in my estimation so far. Would you like to read Valra and then whoever the last is?
Valra is what is she? Does she have a whip? I can't.
She
So gray.
I don't know if that's a whip. It might be. They're opacity high at the moment.
She's doing
Or
something.
low, rather.
Anyway, weak to fire, strong against ice, weak to physical attacks, has an area ice damage that also applies elemental weakness, which reduces enemy resistances, and has a skill to heal 25% of one hero's maximum life after a fight 1 time. So I think that the real fear with Valra is playing around the area elemental weakness in ice.
Yeah, that seems like that's going to be something that's going to be just constantly deployed against us.
Mm-hmm. And then backline is Riza, who is throwing a ball of fire. Slightly, the stats on these units are much higher than the tutorial ones, which makes sense. Strong against fire, strong against ice, very weak to physical damage, weak to nature, weak to air. Does a fire damage attack to the front line that also ricochets to a monster position behind the target if the target is defeated. Okay, so if the fire gets a kill, then it gets to get another hit. And has a skill to deal 12 ice damage to the monster with the lowest ice resistance at the start of each fight. So there's a double ice punish, actually, on this team.
There is indeed. One thing I want to quickly note is Val. Oh yeah, speed. The 35 on Zardan at the front, 55, and then 85. They just get faster as they go from the back line forwards, or sorry, from the front line backwards rather. But one thing I want to quickly note before we actually choose up here is their shared failures in terms of their statistical defenses. All of them are either weak or neutral against nature. The 2 backliners are both weak against armor. Both of the frontliners are weak against fire. So it feels like we basically get to choose 2 or maybe 3 if we get lucky of the units to be more focused around trying to remove off of the field.
Yeah.
So I think it's probably a good idea to also think, like, are we trying to defeat them with morale? Are we trying to defeat them with direct damage?
Yeah.
They seem to be not similar. We have Brujo still. We have Zealsuck, who, this one I'm not necessarily going to go through entirely exhaustively until we go into the new room, but they do nature damage, and they can attack the
very,
front.
very fast, but super weak. Like, they're going to get 1 shot.
And then we have more nature damage as well, which tells me that targeting them for nature damage is a really good strategy for trying to remove them. So if we have a circular saw or something that does nature damage, none of them do. But if we did, that would give us some more information in that direction. We also have the spells here. A front fire that applies burn 3 as well as 60 damage. We probably only get to choose 1 spell because I haven't seen a resource otherwise. Applies in Rage 3 the next group of monsters, and then an area removal of morale, which also applies Terrified, increasing the morale taken from attacks and traps. So if we did that in that room, we can set up for a bunch of morale damage in the second room. And we have an area effect morale attack as well as an area effect morale attack. That's
okay. That's
seems
pretty
like a good setup. So if we're doing that at the very end, do we then want to consider now starting to attack morale?
I think that it would be nice to get, like, if we can assassinate someone, that's something that feels like a pretty good idea to start. Like, use your first couple rooms to weaken the team and maybe specifically kill 1 unit, just because at that point the monster rooms are so much more effective, right? Because you have numbers advantage at least.
So the room that seems the character
that was the end.
Most likely to be able to target in that way is Riza here in the back line. And that's because Riza is weak to armor and nature. We have the Goblin, who is going to be extremely fast, in fact, faster than Riza, can attack the backline for physical damage, which is going to be modified by her armor failure to resist. And then we have an Archer who attacks the backline for nature damage as well. So
Nice. Perfect.
do we then want to go
punish.
with the circular sword, just like get the extra damage in and try and remove her instantly?
If we can do enough morale, then it'll increase our damage. But I don't think that we can do enough morale damage that we increase our attack damage. Because I think we would need to do at least like 50% or something to get to that point.
I think it's increments of 25% increase it, but I think it's like 15% and then 35% and then 75%. So it's far more weighted towards the end.
Okay.
And yeah, none of these
I'm
would
down to
do
just do
enough.
damage here. Yeah.
Let's do it. There you go.
Weaken him up a bit.
Okay, and then Brujo feels like a frontliner. Obviously, Ulna feels like a backliner, and Zeal suck. I'm just gonna go off with the general idea.
What are enemies? Like, what is the enemy back attack? That's the big thing. Is aligning resistances.
Mm-hmm.
Area.
The only back attack they can do is that area.
Okay.
In fact, that's the only attack they can do that doesn't hit the front at all.
Yeah. Then really the frontliner against this team is the thing that's most important. The other two are just who gets hit next.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
So air damage and fire damage. We have bad resistances against those on Brujo. So Brujo will be taking more damage. However, they also have more than double the HP stats of each of the other characters. So it feels like their resistances are basically lower just by virtue of having...
They still just go to the front. I agree.
Place a trap here. Ah, okay, so it expands from a central resource pool. We can now only take these following ones. Applies in Rage 3 to the next group of monsters, which will increase the morale damage dealt. I think it's Rallying Horn here.
Rallying Horn, yeah. And then just try to be strong at this point, hoping we manage to kill off the backliner.
Mm-hmm. Ooh, we have some new characters here. I'll go through Rhapsody. Wait, Unterboss. Unterboss is the same as Dimir, and so is
just a new name.
So, okay, I'll give you Rhapsody then.
This is what was called the Yetigo, I think. Yeah. Rhapsody is the name, and just up and to the right of the name, you can see the actual class. Yetigo. This is a Yeti-adjacent demon with 110 life, 6 steins of beer, significant weakness to fire, as you might expect, some weakness to nature, and strengths against everything else, including a fairly high ice resistance, with a fairly large ice back attack, and an ice area attack that also applies slowed, which reduces enemies' speed by 40 per stack. That's a lot. That is a lot of minus speed at slowed 3. Like, you throw that out, and we get effectively an extra turn against these enemies.
Yeah, one thing I often consider when I'm playing a party-based, turn-based RPG is if you kill the enemy after you slow them, what you did with that slowing action is actually stun them, right? They never get to take another action. So a lot of the time, my final moves against the unit are slow and then kill.
Yeah.
Be interesting if we do that here. It is also worth noting Rhapsody's fire defense is complete garbage with the negative 65, and the fire from Reza attacks the front line.
But that's who we're trying to kill.
Exactly. Maybe Reza's dead by that point.
Yep.
Dunno.
I think we can play around it.
Do we want to put Grognar in front or Rhapsody? It's worth noting Grognar also has weak
to
air
fire.
and fire. Yeah. Exactly. This is strong against air, so it doesn't take as much damage against Zardman. I'd suggest Rhapsody here.
I like it. That means we have to kill their back line.
Yeah.
But I believe. I believe.
I think we did that quite thoughtfully.
Through the bone saw.
Okay, so their skills activate at the start of the fight. Our skills are optional. We choose one of two things to do. Ooh, Zardman does take a bunch of nature damage as well, but I think we do stick with our prior.
Killing the back line is critical if we want our next room to actually achieve anything.
Hit the back line with a poison arrow. Oh, okay, it does come on hover over. Right, I was like, I'd like the information shown up here rather than two central points, but it is. Oh my god!
One life? Did they have like an ability for that? Was that a last stand?
Doesn't appear to be.
Do you want to just use Scream of Terror here on the way out?
100%. That was
Really start
appropriately
to-
terrifying.
Mm-hmm. Boop. That makes me wonder if we could have used Toxic Volley last turn, or one of the AoEs. There might have been a slightly more mathematically advantaged way to do that, but the most important thing was getting the backline killed. That was clear. Was that if there was one thing we needed, it was for the backline to be dead. So
Yeah.
little minus morale. We took out the key target. We did good.
Their morale isn't awful, but it's gonna get pretty bad pretty quick here.
Yeah, now we're getting some nice bonuses against them.
Fear of the dead in the area.
Ooh, we're about to push them over that next threshold.
Wait, hang on. Damage taken increased. And okay, so morale isn't referred to in this game as damage, so it's not going to be modifying itself, I don't think.
Right.
Do you have
Are we
ice
doing the slow?
weakness? No. Yeah, we definitely do the slow because the ice block to the back line hits Valra with her good ice resistance here.
I like the animation.
Super
man,
neat.
dude, we're obliterating their morale. These poor fools.
They knew not what they were coming into here.
Truly.
If they'd known, they never would have turned up. We actually may take them out with this party.
Yeah, I don't think they're getting to the boss. Yeah. Nope. Because then, bye. I wonder if there's any difference between kill or fear in terms of rewards.
There is. The heroes scared give you tears, and heroes
Tears
killed give
versus
you
blood.
It looks like we get 4 per, because we killed 1 and we scared 2 off. We also get a skeleton dog, a skeleton scientist, and a harpy.
We might get to choose here. This might be a choice. This might be a draft.
That is what it seems to be. Okay, so we have Rikef, the skeleton dog. They have a frontline attack for 30 physical damage, which also applies 3 stacks of bleed. And they have a passive, first passive we've seen on a monster, applies enhanced resistance, 2 stacks of that, to the monster of the group at the front, and guaranteed critical 1 to the monster at the back.
That's pretty sweet.
That is super cool. They have lower steins. I still don't know what the steins are really doing.
I know. What does it mean? What does it mean?
They're quite fast and resistant to ice armor, not resistant to fire nature. I'll leave this one for you.
Luis, the skeleton scientist, with an area nature damage poison effect and a frontal air damage and morale damage that also applies bounty, which says the monster who defeats this hero gains 2 motivation. That must be what the Stein is. Motivation, it's probably like how much can you deploy them. I bet that these monsters have to like rest or something.
They also do say level 1 though, and I wonder if motivation is maybe the experience system.
You're motivating them to do better at their job. So you're okay. I could see motivation totally being experience. Okay. Cool unit.
And we have the harpy.
And I'm noticing also that they have different icons, which I don't know if that's like, do you have a skeleton room and a demon room, or is that just synergies? Can you only apply all of the same type? Like, I don't know.
There may be synergies after the fact. We know that coming into this dungeon, it said that we had 2 types, and then it showed us our units, and it said you have orcs and you have skeletons. And it's possible that dungeons split up the units you can put in by their unit type, or maybe later on we'll see, for each skeleton on your team do X. It's not really played in yet, but it's there. I'll leave you Rahalith as well.
The harpy Rahalith with 70 life. All these life numbers are pretty small. Like we've seen a clear divide between the tanky ones and the not tanky ones, and most of the demons seem to die pretty quickly. With a huge fire weakness and a massive nature resistance, the biggest that I've seen. All the other stats pretty down the line, with an area air damage and haste to monsters in front of the harpy. Oh, that's neat. So you get more haste based on how far towards the back she is, and that's speeding your units up. It's the opposite of slow.
Mm-hmm.
But she also has a precise, a surgical maneuver, a front air damage attack, 60 air damage that also applies tiredness. Damage dealt reduced by X at 10 times the stack, so it's a weakness effect. Oh, it maxes out at 50. Okay, so you can't get to tiredness 10 and just deactivate the unit. So that's good to know.
Yeah, I will say it seems like a reasonable thing to have Rahalith as well as the skeleton dog in the same party, get the guaranteed crit on the harpy in the backline, and then the harpy is projecting its haste forward, making the whole party.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
However, what do you think about, if this is a selection system, taking Louis and playing around with what bounty and motivation do?
I like it. I like it a lot because I'd like to figure out what motivation is. Yeah. I think, like, if I were just purely trying to win based on knowing...
Guess, dying isn't the nicest experience. Fortunately, our Lich Doctor is here to resurrect your employees for free. However, being dragged back to the land of the
Lich
living
Doctor.
after a taste of eternal peace can be quite demotivating. If your employees die too often, they might suffer from burnout.
No, I think you are right. It's the amount of times you can deploy them if you're saying that it's demotivating for them to be revived.
Your employees' morale is therefore a matter to be taken seriously. Give them a break from time to time by sending them to the garrison.
Nice.
The feasts organized after a victorious defense will make them want to get back into action.
Cool.
Neat. Ooh, we even see their motivation. We lost 2 motivation on each of the characters that died in the front party. They also have different motivation limits. Zealsuck... Oh, right, so yeah, it definitely is just the Stein. Zealsuck had 5, Brujo had 7, and won't share. How dare you? Ooh. They're pulling our attention to the screen, but there's no narration. Would you like to take it?
Team management. The team management allows you to choose in which room your employees will be deployed during the preparation phase of a dungeon. Employees killed lose 1 to 2 motivation. If an employee's motivation drops to 0, they will go in burnout for 10 weeks. Your employees get 3 motivation back when they stay in the garrison during the defense of a dungeon.
There you go. That's how motivation works.
Employees killed lose 1 to 2 motivation. Interesting. I wonder if that's a randomized factor or if there is some changing factor. We've seen that all of ours lost 2. Maybe there is
like
a resistance.
how badly you died? Did you die or did you like really die?
Did you take someone
that's
out
very
and then
demotivating.
die?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, maybe. It's cool that none of our back party died because we didn't lose any motivation there. That's pretty nice.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
okay,
because letting them rest gives them 3 motivation back, but taking them out maximum takes 2, it feels like you always want them to at least be missing 3, if not 4, before you garrison them, or at least for maximum value as an initial inspection. So having a look at the
check it out.
See the traps. Interesting.
In employees, we get to choose who is available in room 1 and room 2, which means we want to align Louise with units that we might be able to remotivate.
Mm-hmm.
And the question is, would we swap those backwards towards room 2 so they have a better chance of staying alive?
Yeah, it's a good question. But also, like, are we trying to take advantage of the fact that they are assassins? Are we trying to blow them up really quickly and therefore we still want them in the front? I don't necessarily know.
I don't think we have to change anything here at this point, but I'm starting to see the emergent strategy, right? Like, if you are very strong, then you can save motivation by killing enemies before they even get to your master in room 2. If you have assassins, like you said, you might want them earlier to take out a key enemy. If there's certain situation to where maybe we actually flip this and we put the demotivators towards the front so that, you know, enemies are significantly demotivated coming into a room of attacks, right? And then we take them out, right? I can see a lot of different ways to kind of organize our units. What's clear is that we have Brujo and Grogmar are brothers. And so we can flip those back and forth however we see fit because they're the same unit, right?
Yep. Same unit in all statistics as far as I can see. Well, save motivation. The other thing that I'm immediately noticing here is we can only deploy 3 in a fight. However, we have the ability to choose from 6. So we can set ourselves
Right.
up such that our front line can be assassins for nature damage or
based on who's
morale
there.
or something like that. Exactly, based on the enemies that we tend to encounter. Without
Yeah.
additional information about that at the moment, I just want to keep Louis with the people that are already demotivated to try and
Yeah.
see if we can heal them in the rest of the combat. Should we
Yeah.
try and do that at the end? Because obviously only if the monster is defeated do we gain that motivation. In which case, do we just wholesale
That's kind of what I was
swap?
thinking. That's kind of what I was thinking.
I like it.
This way, yeah. It's just to play around with the system, right? Like we may be getting too cutesy with motivation. We can just let things die and then put them in the garrison, but it's it's learning. We're learning.
Exactly. It's important to do so. We can buy a monster or trap from this unscrupulous merchant. Actually. All right, and we're back. I've made sure that the old things are available up there so that you can see the resources we're going to be spending at the merchant. We have 426 gold.
So I know that these are like one take videos, but what if you did the most over the top like pixie dust rainbows transition when we came back right there and then just to reveal a UI element. That's it. Maybe next time it's even less, it's like we scooted Teak 2 inches to the left. But it's it's just like a flag and there's a whole parade.
Yep, and just make that like 20 straight minutes.
20-minute transition.
And don't announce what had changed until the end of it and see if people can spot it. Teak is 2 pixels higher than he was previously. Ta-da!
Where's Waldo? Oh, man. The real content is the transitions, man.
I mean, yeah, content can be anywhere. Every moment can be a comedic moment. Just a little lesson. We've got the trainer here who can spend gold to train your active monsters. So maybe that is our leveling system. And then finally an engineer to spend some gold to upgrade our active traps.
We're spending gold either way, but luckily we have 426 G's. So that's probably enough to do whatever we want.
Just a bit. Do you have a lean this way? I kind of lean trainer personally.
I was definitely leaning upgrade of some kind. Although this early, maybe we want to see more units so that we have more options. But I was actually kind of leaning engineer since trap is always kind of happening first. I can imagine like if we upgraded our demoralizing trap that we could really actually get below a real threshold earlier. But I don't
Let's do that.
I don't know.
Ooh, actually, we
wow,
also
it's like
do
a
get to
doubling.
look at it as well.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
straight up doubling the impact in terms of its morale damage. However, it's not changing the amount of enrage stack it gives. 5 more morale damage and 1 more stack in demoralize, which is actually 20 more morale damage overall.
Wow, yeah. Yeah. That's actually pretty wild.
That is pretty big. That's kind of the way I'm leaning a little at the moment. And then 2 times more physical damage on the circular saw, no change to the bleed.
But I think a lot of times we're putting circular saw before the master so that they come in bleeding. Although we're rarely getting a trap right before the master, right? It's like trap, monsters, spell, trap, monsters, master seems to be the layout.
Yes.
At least sometimes.
Has been so far.
Okay. I think we should do the middle one. Yeah.
They
Seems
cost
awesome.
different amounts as well.
Oh,
So
wow.
we can upgrade this for 250. This is 150. This is 200 by itself. So we could even possibly upgrade this and then maybe even the
If it
circular
lets
saw
us do
thereafter.
too. Yeah.
And it does.
It sure does. Do we double dip?
I think we should double dip.
Okay.
Get as much
It's a
value
lot
as
of
we possibly can.
Mm-hmm.
It's not oh, it is showing me the level 3 upgrade for it, but I'm not even capable of doing it. But it's only 175, so it's not too expensive
wow.
to do. We may have actually even been able to double upgrade
Oh.
this if we focused on it. And that's another
Yeah.
bleeding stack, so 15 more damage. As well as an extra turn of the unit being bleeding, which matters because you were talking about putting it prior to the master. If that is a circumstance that allows itself,
Yep.
then they might be bleeding for the turn that we
By
want
the
to
time they
use
get
the
there.
heal.
Yep.
And you can only encounter one of them. Okay, that makes sense. Choose a task. Some intensive sessions at the gym. A master has to stay fit. We have inadequate resources to do that. So it's just
What does
giving
that
us a
mean?
warning. I imagine
what
maybe
resource
we
did we
needed,
need to use?
maybe we needed
Blood?
more blood or more tears or more gold even just to be able to
Here's a
lift
big
piles of
point.
gold. I don't know. But the other is an event.
Yeah, what exactly are we lifting? That's a good question. Office troubles it is.
Deal with office troubles and the business work environment for better or worse.
A cleaning accident. While dusting the dungeon, the cleaning goblin has freed a monster caught in a spider's web. He also accidentally woke up a giant spider queen, who demands compensation for the destruction of her webs. Minus 120 life by choosing to fight.
Well, the only unit that can affect is the old slaveholder that I suddenly feel less comfortable about being directly in front of. We have the option to feed, which we can't afford. We don't have enough blood for that. Option
And
for
we can't afford to pay them.
pay. Can't do that either. So, well, I mean, we freed Nylik, at least. So we got a skeleton
That's
dog.
nice. We got a skeleton dog, which we kind of wanted. I was interested in the skeleton dog.
Huh.
Okay, so that injured our master.
Yes. We also
Wow.
get plus 24 life per week, so we're healing over time as well.
Oh, nice. But we're not getting gold, and we keep getting things that cost money.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting.
Got to take the event here.
Icarus, a wizard with a strange hat, has fallen from the sky and landed in the entrance hall.
He was carrying a magical artifact. Troll beer. Magic. Monsters placed at the front lose 50 speed, but their maximum life increases by 50%. That's a pretty sweet artifact.
No kidding. No kidding.
Are we selling the artifact or Icarus?
I think you do a
Let's get-
bundle deal.
Okay.
You can have this artifact and you can have this squashed wizard in order to sweeten the pot.
I think we should take this.
Agreed. We oftentimes have a front line that we don't really care
Oh.
about the speed off.
There's the artifacts. We have to put them down here. Because we have others, don't we? Or is that just a library of artifacts we know about?
I think that's the library of artifacts we know about.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Alright, adventurous.
Time for fighting.
There's a lot more management in this game than I was thinking, and I know it's a dungeon management game, but I was suspecting the fights would be longer, but they are quite short. I was expecting that you would be expected to win the fight more often,
Right.
but
Right.
there are so many systems telling you are not expected to win many of these fights. The master is
Yep.
going to be fighting a lot of the time. It is feeling more and more as we progress through it like a tower defense to me.
Yeah, in a way, with a bit of the almost oh, look, the layout here is different too. So now we know that can happen. With a bit of like, it's got that colony simulation feel because you're managing your units' morale and leveling them up and stuff. So there's a little bit of you've got to pay attention to the long-term plight.
Mm-hmm. Super cool.
Hey, this was the party we fought in the beginning in the tutorial.
It was indeed. We
seen
have
this.
Fokal, Sulya, and Karen as the back. Having a look again at their resistances, Ice on the back line would be nice. Ice is not good against the mid line, but it is good against the other. Rizri does have that AoE attack, has the ability to slow them as well. If we have Nylik out, though, we have a guaranteed critical for the one at the back, and we have a Skeleton Magus who deals 60 fire damage to the back line. Are you fire weak? You aren't, but you're not fire strong either. Maybe we use Nylik and Underboss to try and start targeting down Karen in the back line. Or
And then are we
maybe-
putting
Sorry?
Risri in the front to get an AoE slow, or are we putting Grogmar for AoE morale?
Good question.
Because we're not going to do a lot of attack damage with them because of our artifact, right? Didn't we have minus 50% damage but plus 50% health? Is
I
the
thought it was
artifact we
minus
just
50
equipped?
speed.
Oh, it's minus 50 speed. Okay, so they're just super slow. Okay. Okay.
Actually,
Which
but it's
means we
also
could
plus
do-
50% to their maximum life total, which it's 5 more for Grogmar than it is for Rizri. My initial lean is something like this.
I like that. I wasn't sure who to put in the front, but I would have landed with the same order in terms of skeleton dog and then backline Underboss.
Underboss.
Underboss. It's like something I would order in a bar in Germany.
No, I don't mean to be quiet. Sorry, I just can't speak loud. I can't speak right now. I'm Underboss! It's from a scene from my one-man show where I hang up on a family member because I can't speak in public transport.
In live streams, this is the point where I put up the stream is over screen. See you next time. It was a good day.
I need to do that. I need to have punchlines take out the stream more commonly. We've got morale weakness heavily on Thokol at the front here as well, and we do have things to target morale too. I guess it just comes down to ultimately, like, this does have ice weakness, so the Rizri attacking the backline with the back attack there might actually be what we're looking for to try and assassinate.
Honestly, if we are able to, if all of our units live and they all get to move, the backline's probably, if they're not all the way dead, they're close.
Reminding myself of their abilities, they do have one attack to the backline from Karen, but it's not going to be enough to kill Underbus in a single hit.
Underbus.
So I'm assuming we're just going to use the two ones that are powerful. We're going to use
the good ones. And so the question is, which one do we want the backliner to be able to dodge if they're still alive? And that means that's probably Bone Catapult, right? Because then Circular Saw will finish them off.
Yes.
That was my thinking anyway.
I totally agree. I was going to make the point that the backline, I wasn't even going to talk about the dodging. I was going to make the point that the backline has a higher morale defense. And as a result, if they do avoid any of these attacks, they should avoid the one that's morale.
Right.
Saw.
Circ. So at this point, this backliner is a bit more tanky than the previous. There's a chance she's still around, but very close to being dead. So we may want to have, high speed to take her out. Are we going to try to do bounty things with Louise and maybe finish demoralizing the front line as well?
I like the idea of that. It also has air damage to the front line, which is not necessarily great there, but negative 30 morale is pretty dang big. Although we also have the ability to just deploy the nature damage against everyone. No one's ridiculously defensive against nature or ridiculously undefensive against nature. They're kind of 10%, 15% in other directions. I like the idea of, if nothing else, just trying out Louis and seeing how that goes.
Yeah. Okay. The natural would be then to put Brujo in the front because everybody else is too small. And this is, I am sure that we're going to have fights where we get to deploy 3 glass cannons because they're fast enough. But for now, it definitely feels really effective to just put someone big in the front.
Definitely. I'll posit here that Zealsuck doesn't seem like they're necessarily going to be that good here. The enemies may even be able to kill Zealsuck in a single move. But also 35 physical damage to the back line. This is physical resistance. This is physically resistant. This is physically resistant. Nature, again, the back lines are both physically resistant. The front line's a little bit weaker against nature, so it's not awful.
Isn't Ulna nature too?
That's a good point. That's a great point, well made. All right.
Unfortunately, we may just be too natural. They're honestly very similar units. Zealsuck and Ulna.
Yeah, I like this. Because the skill from Thokol will give plus 30% damage to Karen, plus 30% damage on their 44 physical damage. I'm not going to calculate it, but it's more than 50, the health of Zealsuck. It's probably less than 60.
Yeah.
42 is 14, so it'd be just a bit more than 14. So, yeah, it won't kill in a single hit against Louis there in the background.
Oh, actually, but no cigar.
Wait a second. It's physical damage, and Zealsuck in the back... Louis in the backline has a negative 20% to its armor.
No, they totally die.
So it totally
Hopefully
does.
Hopefully she's
dead. Louis actually acts 5 faster than the enemy's Karen, so we will at least get a hit off before that happens.
Just drop the AoE and hopefully kill her.
Or
there's a decent chance she's dead.
Exactly, if she's dead. Right.
Yeah. It's a plan. It's a plan.
Oof. I mean, don't really have many choices here. Just hit him with the bite. Whew.
We lived.
We do. I do want to see what critting does. Is it straight up double? Is it 1.5?
Yeah, let's see.
1.5.
That was a 1.5. But do they have any fire resistances? Because maybe it wasn't 1.5.
None in either direction.
Okay, perfect.
Do we want to throw the ice block against the backline, try and guarantee our kills?
I think so. I think we're locking this in.
Unfortunately, bite is only front.
Meh. This unit is basically a totem for us.
Yeah, they're an enhance to the other effects. Kind of expected that to go like that.
We get to cast a spell too. Not so bad. How much health does she have left, the backliner?
70. So she will survive the circular saw.
So maybe...
Burning Whip only hits
that's-
front line.
Yeah, it's a lot though.
It is indeed. Enrage 3 the next group of monsters, or the Intimidate with the Terrified. Terrified will actually make her take 50% more damage from... Wait, morale taken from attacks and traps. Okay, so Terrified is like the alternate version.
Vulnerable for morale. Got it. I still like Intimidation here though, because we're about to decimate their morale between that and our trap.
I like that. I like that.
We're already getting enraged by... We already have enraged 3 from our trap.
I mean, the trap isn't going to do morale damage here, but that's how we intend
sorry,
to
I
later.
thought I was thinking of Rallying Horn. One of our traps gives our units enraged, but we're actually running the other one, right?
Yes. Okay, Goblin Trick can try and hit the backline here. Or actually, the Poison Dagger against the front line also isn't bad, because this unit is weak to nature. The backline would just be trying to get it first. So, when does bleeding occur on their turn? -10
That's a good
life on
question.
next turn.
And we get 2 moves before she goes also, because our Louis gets to go first, which killing her before Louis dies would be pretty good, right? Because if Louis gets hit, they'll die. Unless the enemy has significant minus damage. I don't know if morale affects their damage.
And then Toxins across the board will take her. Okay, yeah, they take
Nice.
damage at the start of the turn.
Okay. Are we farming blood here or tears? Because we can do either.
That's true. I hadn't even considered in that direction. We definitely have our choice on the Thokkel here. Although I will say, Louis attacking the front will kill Thokkel right now, so we may want to just remove Thokkel this turn.
Do Cleaver and then...
Just popping the music down just a wee bit.
Do Cleaver and then have Louis do the bounty.
Yep.
Okay. It's big blood. Poison!
Oh god. We don't even have the ability to skip a turn, so we just have to deal a bunch of damage to them.
Yeah. Well, maybe Louis will collect their own bounty. It's kind of awkward to play around, isn't it? We're too strong for our own strong.
Yeah, no kidding. All right, well, there you go. Hit him with the pheromones. We got the bounty on you, so we get our we get ours back, but we haven't lost any.
We didn't scare anyone this time,
Mm-hmm.
but that's okay. Got lots of blood. More blood this time, by the way. Notice that? So it's scaling. It's not 4 anymore.
But it also doesn't break down into an easily quantizable amount against the or the separable amount, right? There's no factor that divides 3 into 13. So maybe there was an additional modifier. How did we get the extra blood? Or is it
Like a bonus for triple blood since we went all in. Maybe it was
Yeah.
4, 4, and 4, and we got a bonus. I have no idea.
or maybe killing a bleeding enemy somehow? I don't know. There's an ice skeleton here, though. That's what I do know. Has 100 speed, has 60 to its damage. Obviously weak to fire, quite weak to nature as well, resistant to ice and a little bit to armor. They can deal 60 ice damage to the front enemy unit, applying 2 frostbite, a new stat for us. Frostbite says 5% of maximum life as ice damage per turn. Ooh, scaling, so it's
Per
really good
stack.
against taking down frontliners.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet, actually. We're not great at that yet, other than by morale.
We also have Aria, which is 12 ice damage and -9 morale, as well as 2 demoralized. Okay, we've seen attacks similar to that prior.
That's pretty sweet. This is the morale version of our yet to go.
Mm-hmm.
You want me to take Zygomatic? What a sweet name. The Skeleton Soldier is Zygomatic. with a fairly reasonable stat line, 7 steins of beer, which is the high end that we've seen so far. 50 physical damage, and bleed 2 is their regular attack, and they have a passive, which we haven't seen a lot of. Monsters behind the skeleton soldier take 15% less damage, which might be like just enough to keep someone alive through a back attack, an arrow or something.
Especially if
cool.
they are weak to what is otherwise going to be used. Honestly, as soon as you said zygomatic, for some reason, I'm in the space. I know the reason, actually. I'm in the space of Grease Lightning. She's electromatic, zygomatic. She's a skeleton soldier. Run! You also have one more if you'd like to take them.
Yeah, sure. This is Lindley the Skeleton. What's a majorette?
No clue.
I guess it's this person
I'm assuming they're like maybe a baton master for a marching band.
in the band. Yeah. Okay. Again, that kind of mid or backline stat line, not ridiculous health, but higher than some of our assassins, with fairly neutral damage and resistances other than 40% weakness to physical damage and 35% weakness to air. Has a back attack that does 60 physical damage and applies vulnerable to, and vulnerable is damage taken is increased by 30%. I would imagine that those are not stacking up. I think that that's just a turn count. I can't imagine that that becomes damage taken increased by 60%.
Yeah.
But maybe I'm wrong.
I assume it had to be that from the speed modifier, because modifying someone's speed by 120 in a single is straight up putting them at the end of the line.
Yes, always, right? Yeah, yeah. And then there is an area move, 12 fire damage and minus 18 morale, which is quite a bit. Just a nice little move there.
So
These are cool units.
They are. They definitely are. The one I'm kind of leaning most towards is zygomatic, and it's because we don't have
Really?
many choices in terms of our frontline units at the moment.
Yeah.
We have obviously Rizri, which is cool to have the Yatigo in there as well.
Cool. Rhapsody.
Quite literally. Oh, come on, lay off him. He's an ice guy. We also we also have the passive there that seems pretty good in my mind.
Where's the stream over button? Where is it? Where is it in the YouTube?
I'm sorry,
Show
I
me
don't
to the
have
button.
Oh, actually, sorry. The stream over button in YouTube. It's actually not displayed in English. It's displayed in an otherwise dead language. But stream over is spelled SUBSCRIBE. So if you just hit that, it'll put an end to my puns. I promise.
Can you put like 600 bells on the screen right here? 20-minute transition, only bells, and it's just like bells around the world. It's like beautiful historic bells everywhere.
Yep. I would be keen to. But I do not
Okay.
want to commit to editing.
So back to zygomatic, the point that you're making.
Zygomatic. Yes. I
50% physical resistance. Look at those
Yeah.
resistances. Pretty good.
It is pretty damn good, although if they get targeted with fire or ice, suddenly they are sad about it.
Sure, but that's what we're starting to give ourselves, elemental options, right? Like, if the enemies are doing physical or nature damage, all of a sudden zygomatic looks far healthier, right? And so that suddenly looks like a real frontliner, especially with the help of our artifact. That we could absolutely deploy this unit as a frontliner.
Definitely true. That's an additional modifier there that I wasn't even considering at the time. However, you were surprised when I said zygomatic there. So do you have a particular lean?
I was kind of actually leaning initially towards the ice skeleton, and the reason is just because of this cool effect that we have to start leaning in potentially on other ice synergies and also to take out frontliners. We're not really excellent at taking out frontliners. We have a few units that can hit the front line, but as far as I recall, we don't have a single target ice and or frostbite effect for the front line, and that's a pretty powerful one too. So I don't know. I'm trying to think of like, what are the things you're balancing, right? We want to make sure that we have a balance of elemental strengths and weaknesses ourselves. We want to make sure that we have a balance of elemental strengths and weaknesses for hitting the enemy. and a balance of units for the different positions and for different kind of tactics, either tanking, assassinating, buffing, or debuffing. Those are kind of like the major buckets of things that we're doing. And so I don't have a good sense where Gunark sits in terms of our resistance profile. But I do think that this regular attack, this front attack, is doing something that's fairly substantial.
Definitely. That is a huge impact you can get out of that, especially early on, as they have obviously as much HP as they will have. It seems like it's a good like chunk down the frontline enemy tank kind of situation.
Yeah.
And so far, our approach to tanks, as you said when you first saw Gunark, has been taking away their morale. And there might be a frontliner that's healthy and quite moralistic. So
Heroes, they keep improving their moral compass. They'll never win. No, it's morale,
they come in with a
kid. It's
paladin at the front
morale.
line, and we're just like, oh, god damn it.
Your worldview is so reasonable.
No.
I think we should take the skeleton soldier, man. I think we should do the zygomatic. I like that. The more I'm thinking about it, the more I like it. And it plays into our existing artifacts. It's good.
I like that plan. Hey, we see that Rizri here did only take a half. The rest of them took 2, though.
Nice. Good work. Rizri.
137 is our gold up in the top right for everyone else.
Go to the event.
I think we probably do go to the event because we even have a trainer opportunity later, so we might get gold from this for the sake of it. We also have a course, an opportunity to send one of your employees to an intensive training course, which I imagine locks them out of use for a couple turns, but also gives them power.
Office tour. While walking through the corridors, you notice a monster waiting for a job interview. You could hire the candidate right now without intermediaries. On the other hand, what makes them think they can come in uninvited? We can either intimidate them, or we can hire them. That's it.
I mean, it is a skeleton dog, which we've already had, but we do know from having a skeleton dog, it's a totem, right? It is mainly an effect for the rest of the units that you have on the field. Its individual bite is not necessarily that strong. I'm leaning towards intimidate.
Really? Wait. Oh, that's plus 10 tiers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I like it. I like it. I thought that was minus 10 tiers. I was like, that's way too expensive. So if we had enough money, would we have been able to hire the spider before? From the other event?
I don't know. There were other options on the screen at the time. Was it higher, though?
The only options were too expensive for us, I think. There was like, I don't remember what they said, though. Yeah. Let's intimidate it. I like it.
Let's do it.
Get some resource. We have the power of tiers.
We do not have the resources for the course, apparently.
No recourse. We will have to go to the trainer.
End stream button. Don't hit it again. Don't hit the subscribe button again. You hit it the only
you can
only an odd amount of times over the course of your life.
1 or 3, maybe even 5, but no 2 or 4. And if it's already then 0, okay, you know.
I mean, I guess that tells us to go to the trainer. Although I'm looking down here and I can see transmute blood or tears into another resource. I imagine that's possibly too money.
Can we turn it to gold? Yeah, that would be nice because we haven't figured out where to use that stuff.
That's what I was just thinking. Like, they don't necessarily have a choice for us there. We also don't have another actual fight for a while. We've got plunder down here. Send 3 volunteers to plunder the place of your choice. Again, I'm probably going to lock them out for a while. And business trip. So basically, you do the same here. Choose an employee to protect the sales department during a business trip.
This is core rogue, right? This is fundamental rogue. There's a knowledge cost. And that's what we're paying down right now is where do we spend the blood and how do we get it and what are the events that we could find? How expensive are things? Okay, so training. We can only pay through cash.
Can only pay through cash and we can only afford enough to either upgrade Zielsuk or Underbus. It looks like it's giving each and every unit... Wait, hang on, no, not every unit. They get a new move, but it's passive for the majority. However, here it's a front attack, right? So...
And it's also sometimes changing resistances and health and stats and stuff. Like Underbus is getting faster here. And getting healthier. That's a big deal.
It is. Underbus is like
front
occasionally dying to a single attack because of that negative 45% armor.
I like this upgrade a lot. If we believe in the principle that without any other information, we should try to spend all of our money all the time just to be as powerful as we can be, then I quite like this train because we're almost always deploying this unit, and this lets them also assassinate the front line, and it lets them take one more hit from an archer. That's good.
I definitely agree with that, but I also don't necessarily want to overlook the possibility of stacking so much bleeding on enemies.
Oh, yeah.
Using the
With the
passive
circular
effect
saw
of Seal
too. Yeah.
It also
That's a pretty good
removes
point.
their nature weakness.
Oh, wow. You're right. Although at 60 health, how big of a deal is that?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure they're just dying. What's the fist icon? That's their base damage. This increases their damage of their moves too. Okay. Back and front attack are both doing more. I see it.
This one's not increasing its damage. Do you still have a lean
But
towards
speed.
Underboss?
I do, because it gives them adaptability in terms of where they hit. It gives them so much more health, and it also makes them 10 faster, which they need to be fast. I like this upgrade.
The only thing that I think we're overlooking, but it's still in your direction for this, is this actually provides what you were looking for from the Glacial Skeleton Warrior, right? The front is burn, does exactly the same thing as Frostbite, and it's an extra turn of it even. 5% of maximum life is fire damage per turn.
Wow, I didn't fully notice that burn was a maximum life. Yeah, I was admittedly skimming. I had to point this out on a stream recently, to where it's like, these games have tooltips for their tooltips, and that's not in any kind of shade, but like you can't read it all. You know, sometimes you got to skim a little bit and then go back and refine.
Yep, 100%. I find like a lot of when we do this, the Rhaps Teak take a peek, is I try and very, very quickly pass the information as much as I can while you're talking about something, and then I try and communicate, okay, this is the amount of depth that I think is appropriate for explaining and exploring this mechanic, and then we can move on and maybe revisit it later. You'll even be able to spot me saying exactly that, but it kind of sinks into the background a little bit as well.
So how about this as a plan? You wanted to check out Alchemist, so let's do it. And then maybe we get up to 2 from now. There's 2 fights, a regular and a veterans. So maybe we try to get there and see if we can take out veterans, and then that's like a pretty taken peak.
Yep. I like it. I like it. Despite the mess reigning in the lab, the alchemist can still transmute your resources as many times as you wish. As many times as you'd wish. Interesting.
Whoa.
You do get a loss of 50% when trading from one to the other, so it's a lossy conversion. Yes.
Although, if that's 10 and 10 for 75 gold, so you really don't get much gold from this. That makes me wonder if that's like... we haven't seen where to spend blood or tears yet, is the trouble, right? If we had, right now I'm like, yeah, turn it all to gold. Like, everything's only gold all the time, but maybe there's a specific interaction where we spend this blood for upgrades or something, and then we would feel really foolish making that transmutation. As far as I'm concerned, this should just be money. We just turn it into cash.
That's where I'm leaning as well. It's worth noting, 75 gold is not nothing. We got 111 from the last dungeon. It's way more than like, or rather, it's a very condensed gain of it, and also it's half a level for a character.
Yeah, that's true.
Let's try to do that one time, and then bounce out of here. Thank you, Alchemist.
Bounce.
I'm going to leave this one to you, because I could easily go for either of these.
Okay, so it's basically 3 volunteers if we want to plunder, or 1 volunteer for business trip, which means plunder is probably going to be worth more, but we reduce the number of units available to us. And I'm trying to get to veterans, so I think we should go business trip so that we have more options for fighting this team.
I like it. Would you like to take this?
Business trip. The management would like to send one of your employees with the sales department to be their bodyguard. You will be compensated, of course.
Okay. And we can send one of our orcs, and it looks like... Oh, we get different rewards based on who we send? Whoa! Okay. If we send one of our orcs, we get 183 gold and +1 morale. Is that +1 permanent motivation? Like +1 to their... They go to 8 instead of 7? Or is that just overcap? Maybe that's morale for everyone.
I don't know. It could be any of those, unfortunately.
it could be anything. I keep calling it morale, which is a dangerous level of overload. It looks like our skeleton dog gets us a new artifact, which has been pretty rare, but they lose a motivation. Okay, and you can see the motivation that they're losing right there too. And this is a Ring of Wraith. All monsters of the group gain Enraged 4 when a creature is defeated. Whoa, that's a lot of Enrage. That's pretty sweet. And so it looks like maybe the motivation is actually wasted for the other unit on the left. And then on the right, we send our brand new skeleton soldier to get 208 gold and 20 tiers, which is perhaps... It's clear that we're getting reward based on the power of the unit, because our brand new spicy unit that's just like strictly better than what the orc gets, right? 183 gold to 208 gold and 1 motivation to 20 tiers. That's certainly better. The question is, do we want to, with the dog being already at 3 motivation, go get another artifact? I'm pretty tempted.
It is away for 14 weeks. That's the big cost of the dog going away.
Yeah, that's a long time.
My initial lean, honestly, was towards Grogmar, and it's because that's not...
it's fast.
Exactly, it's quite fast, and also we do have another orc, so we're not robbing ourselves of much optionality. The only option we lose is putting an orc in each battle. Or 2 orcs in the same battle, but I don't necessarily think that's something that we're currently aiming towards doing.
Yeah, the sooner we get the money back too, right? It's like if we're waiting 5 weeks, then we can start getting upgrades. 8 weeks, it's more value, but we have 8 weeks without the skeleton, and 14 weeks is eternity. Although that does look like a really solid artifact. I agree, actually. I see now why it is that the orc is arguably better than the skeleton, and it's the timing. I didn't realize they were different weeks. Okay, I'm good with 1 or 2. Either artifact or fast. Either one is good by me.
To me, the differentiating factor here is, do we get it instantaneously, but they come back in 5 weeks? Or are we getting the Ring of Wrath now?
Oh gosh, you're right, because it says you'll be compensated.
Let's go for the Ring of Wrath.
Okay, yeah, that would be sweet for this elite fight if it does give it to us now.
Yep, it's there.
I almost forgot.
Oh,
the
sweet.
company owns several dungeons that need protecting. We only send teams when our specialists inform us that a group of adventurers are approaching. You will sometimes have the choice of several contracts. The more dangerous the heroes, the higher your bonus if you succeed. Thanks to the company's portal service, sending you to the other end of the world is a matter of moments.
Neat. So that is just a description of the fact that we can check these too. Okay, so the Frozen Caves difficulty
Before
is
we go,
2. Sorry.
We should go to the thing in the top and rearrange our units to make sure that we have them in the places where we want them.
Very, very true. We can already see that Nylik is locked out for the 13 weeks here. And the stock just shows us the traps that we already have.
So, like, we have 3 frontliners in room 1 right now. Arguably.
That is true. That is true. And we're no longer using Nylik to guarantee a crit, which means that we don't have to have a party that is just Nylik kind of not necessarily doing as much. I mean, the bleed is quite nice if you land it off 2 times, and occasionally they do. But it means that we have more midline and backline options.
I think we should put 1 frontliner from room 1 into room 2 and bring 1 of the mid or backliners from room 2 back to room 1.
It's just, do we want to throw Rizri back? Or Zygomatic? Because I feel like Grogmar, we probably leave an orc in each, just so that we have the optionality still.
I agree. I am thinking... The thing about Rizri that's really nice is, even though Rizri's a frontliner, they have a back attack. And so it's more likely that we can use them to weaken or take out a backliner, which leans me towards Zygomatic. And also, Zygomatic is a resistance-based tank, which means we can take out baddies in room 1 that would threaten them as a tank in room 2. So I'm kind of liking sending Zygomatic to room 2.
I like that as well, and the big reason that I like that is because in the secondary fight, we have more debuffs on the enemies, we have more buffs on our own units, so having them alive a little bit longer from the passive seems a little bit more useful. But also there's the possibility of Zygomatic going in the front line and then putting Brujo behind, and the big reason to do that is both of them stack physical damage as well as life lost in bleeding stacks to the frontline unit. We can get 4 bleed on them, and then if they live another turn,
Yeah.
we can stack that again to
That's
7
huge.
because it would have decreased.
Yeah.
7 just straight up kills a frontliner. So that is our plan for killing a frontliner then, which means Underboss is free to do whatever the heck they want.
So who are we sending back to room 1 then? Louis, Olna, or Zielsuk?
Bounding 5, right? So you would still have to do it within 5 turns, and there might not be 5 turns between the 2 rooms. But this is just a pepper everyone with some nature damage situation if we want to do it that way.
And also, we found that when we had Louise in room 2, it was way too hard to land the bounty. Like, it just was almost impossible, right?
Ooh, actually, the one against that is that Ulna and Louis are both reasonably fast, but they both have area of attack nature poison damage. So we could start stacking poison in that way as well.
And so that would lean towards just throw Zielsuk to the front, who also does nature damage and poison.
They do, but they do it more specified as a target, although...
True.
Yeah, I guess they would be happy to go along as well. Although we already have a plan for the frontliner in the second room with the Brujo Zymatic, so I think Zielsuk.
Okay.
Having a look at these, we can see that we get a master bonus for completing the adventurers, and we get an artifact for completing the veterans. We get less gold for completing the
That's
veterans.
funny. That's funny. I still want to do it because I want to see like how hard it is, but apparently that's saying artifacts are so strong that we don't even give you gold, which is super awesome.
Looks like there are
But it makes
possible
sense,
disaster
right? I mean, relics are good.
They are. They definitely are. I want to know what like the average length of a campaign is, or campaign run individual.
Are we talking like 40 weeks? Are we talking 20 weeks? Are we talking? Yeah.
Ooh! Look at this happy little guy. Would you like to give us the description for Chan?
Yeah, so this is a level 1 novice. An elite novice. Excuse me. Okay, I'm elite. 220 life and 135 morale. Once again, we have a frontliner who has less morale than health. Although they're all pretty healthy. 220, 235, 210. And this one is weak to fire, strong against ice, a little bit weak to physical damage, which is funny, and a little bit weak to air, but a little bit strong against nature. Pretty down the line. Has a front attack, 35 ice damage, applies frostbite 2 to all monsters if the target's life is under 50%. So that's interesting. And then skill, remove the penalty with the most stacks applied from all heroes at the start of his turn once. Interesting.
He also has a relatively low speed, which I think you did go over, but that will mean that the start of his turn will occur after Mira, Kami, probably a lot of our characters as well.
Yep.
Mira we've seen before.
Ricochet fire. This one's new. Take it.
Sure. We have Kalami, the Ice Wizard. They have an area for 16 ice damage, applies slowed 1 to all of us. It also has a skill, randomly moves all monsters to another position at the start of the first fight. Wow. And increases their own speed by 20. So maybe if randomly moves all monsters to another position at the start of the first fight, do we specifically want to put ourselves in pre-messed up? Like when you know you're going to get surprised in combat in DD and you set in a party that everyone's in the wrong position?
Yeah, and it also means that running double tank is not terrible, since it's hard to say who will be in the front. So we could definitely do, and Grogmar and Risri are both useful even if they're not in the front. So we could definitely do like Undabus, Grogmar, Risri, you know?
Yep. I really like that. One of the big reasons I really like that is because Risri already comes with 40 ice on armor.
Yeah.
And Chan is doing ice damage to the front line and trying to affect their maximum life. And then we also have Kalami, who's doing like ice damage and AoE. It just feels like Risri is a relatively good defense here. I also really do like the addition of Grogmar and Underboss there, leaving Zielsuk out. Although, wait, no, Zielsuk wasn't the one we leveled up. Of course, it was Underboss. Never mind, we're fine. So Underboss
also... Undabus gives us fire damage for the backline. Right? Does Trollbeer, right?
It does. As soon as I click and place you there, Trollbeer flashes.
And we don't really want them losing speed, right?
Yeah.
So we put them middle. We put like Grogmar up front and Reesri in the back or something. Although Reesri, if Reesri goes up front by the shuffling, they're getting hit by the fireball, which is pretty brutal.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe we actually put them up front.
Well, it's
And put
also brutal
Grogmar
to
in the back.
Grogmar. It's 50% negative fire resist to him as well. No one here is happy about being hit with a fireball.
Nobody wants to get hit by a fireball. You just don't want it. It's gonna be a tough time.
I could go with that swap though. I'm not too mad about that because it's, you know, it's the ice attack that's coming out from Shan is also not super powerful. Okay.
Nobody's dodging any traps. So we'll just use, it doesn't matter if we do Bone Catapult or Circular Saw, I guess. I guess we do Circular
not
Saw
true.
last.
Yes, because we want to continue stacking the bleeding on the targets from our second party. Decide that later. Circular Saw. Okay.
I'm not confident that anyone will be dead, but we won't get shuffled at least. And that's good.
So far, this is my inclination, just getting the extra bleed out there, take
I
out
agree.
Xion with the bleed stacks that we have by that point.
I agree.
Do we want to maybe get Ulna in there? Unfortunately, only if Kalami is dead is Ulna really doing that much damage.
Yeah, but that's true for Louis too. And so, Louis, I guess, gives us a way to also do morale stuff.
Shan is weak to air.
That's not bad. That's not bad. And then they'd go before our tanks, and we might even get some morale back. Motivation.
Their
There
AoE
can't
attack.
be a morale and a motivation. I will never get this straight. I'm gonna try.
Their AoE attack is better than the AoE attack of Ulna. Basically, just the same with an extra stack and 3 more damage. All right.
It doesn't feel like this game tries to make every unit equally powerful. There's a certain amount of like, this unit is more chumpable, this unit is more expensive to upgrade, like more powerful, but the upgrades are really expensive. Wait, this is a sad outcome. No.
Fire resistant.
Wait.
Dead.
No. Well, we hoped we would get our big flame off, but at least they took all the attacks. That's not bad.
It could certainly be worse.
Frontline is weak to physical, for what it's worth.
That is true. We can start getting some lead stuff out there. Yeah. Let's see if we can get 2 stacks of bleed on you.
That would be nice. Nice.
Nice,
That'd be
mate.
nice.
That's a
That'd
very
be nice,
Australian
mate.
nice right there.
I only do this when I'm recording with you, and you don't even have that type of Australian accent, so I have no idea why it happens, and it only happens with the word noise.
Nice. Oh, nice, mate.
Nice. That was a pretty nice attack, that one.
Oh, that wasn't
Not
nice.
so nice.
Yeah, more bleed.
All right.
Bleed, baby, bleed.
Take him to the cleaver.
We still going AoE here, or are we... Well, I mean, it's not really much damage against the backliner with the resist.
This is also like, when we did that last, I think it baited out the cleanse from Xion, so that the bleed stuck around, which is good. Man, having our assassin end up in the front was kind of a worst case outcome.
Yeah.
Maybe we were intended to put them up front just to guarantee that they weren't there in the end. I don't know.
Hindsight's
It
2020.
did seem like it put everyone in a truly new position. It wasn't a random. It really was like a true mix-up.
Wait, are you going to be bleeding by the time you go into the next room? No, it just got removed. So, we can just Burning Whip instantly killing Xion.
It's not bad.
Mira is not Mira has bad armor resistance, and in our next room, we have 2 units with physical damage hitting the front line. I think we Burning Whip and just remove
Okay.
move Mira forward. So we're leaving Kalami as our last enemy to kill, but I think that's totally okay.
That's just the way it's turning out, right? Like, our whole plan was based around Undabus getting at least one hit, and they didn't, and so that's okay. Maybe with the circular saw here, we didn't actually need to kill the front line, though.
I didn't think about that.
We don't worry about it. We don't worry about it.
Yeah, let's take that.
We're gonna get some
let that
bounties.
one take care of itself. Let's do some air damage. I do think it's quite likely we actually just win this fight, overwhelm them before they even get to the master.
I think that's very likely, right? Yeah. Ooh, we are weak to fire. We just have a lot of fire weakness on our team in general. Like almost all of our frontliners. So we need a fire resistant frontliner.
It's very true. If we
It
get
would be
offered
nice,
one,
man.
we know that's what we're looking out for.
More bounty. Claim the bounty.
Get him.
Dude, this skeleton soldier is pretty sweet.
Yep. I
Nice.
also noticed there that we
draft.
got a different amount of blood per hero killed. The blood came out of them at the end, right? We saw Chan died and gave us 4, and then we saw the backliner died and gave us 6. Now, I know that the backliner was level 2. I don't know if Chan was level 2. So maybe you
Was
get an
level,
extra
yeah.
level of blood based on...
For the kind of veteran enemies.
there is a
Whoa.
2 bird stone here. Attacks targeting only the hero at the front deal 30% of final damage to the hero positioned behind the target.
That's neat.
There's a couple of our characters that are pretty happy to exploit that.
Yeah, since we're kind of double tanking sometimes, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you take Pocket Mirror. Pocket Mirror. Damage of the first attack suffered by monsters placed at the back is returned to the assailant once per fight. That's pretty sweet. That's really, really strong, actually, especially considering it's not even just the reflect itself. It's just one stack of buffer for our assassins so that they're more likely to be able to actually land a hit.
Oh, right. Oh, so I wasn't even interpreting this as blocking the attack and then returning it, but it does say is return. Well, does return necessarily imply that we don't also suffer it?
The fact that it's a pocket mirror makes me think that it's a true reflect. This is a bit of, reading into the game design, but if I were offering the player something called a mirror that also you took full damage, I feel like that would be really confusing.
At least a little. And then finally we have the Aegis. Creatures transfer their stacks of Enraged to a random monster of the group when they are defeated.
But it's exclusive to orcs, it looks like. Skeleton units won't get it.
Yeah, and we're not really doing too many enraged type things. We have a little bit of it, like the ring is giving us some. We could get the goblin horn back involved.
Yep.
I like either of these two. I kind of like
the
this
mirror.
a little bit more, but let's go with the mirror. Let's do it. I want to see how it works in terms of its return.
The one thing that was against the 2-bird stone for me was that we also already have the artifact that's giving our frontliner plus 50% health. And so our best tank truly is our frontliner. Splitting damage out for them in a way felt like it was kind of working against that goal. Although double tank strat, it's maybe it's less of a non-bow and more of just a...
I think you got caught up by what I was about to get caught up in when I read the relic for the first time. It said hero. It means them. We're just trampling 30% of our damage forward through the enemy.
Oh, crap. I thought it was monsters. Okay, 2-bird stone for heroes. Okay. Oh, that is kind of cool. Unless you kind of ignore the enemy tank some.
A little bit
Okay.
at the absolute
I
least.
misread it. I definitely misread it. That's my bad.
Some intensive sessions at the gym. A master has to stay fit. Do we want to work him out a little bit? I kind of want to see if the next battle is the final battle for the first week, because it seems like they are trying to increase in difficulty, but if this gets much over 12 minutes longer than it currently is, which would take us to 2 hours, then I'm happy to go like,
Sure,
I
we
don't
can do a
think we're
couple
getting to the end of
events.
it." Yeah.
I think my recollection is that these things are quite a lot of weeks, like 40 or even 100 weeks per campaign. But my memory is more like a sieve than a trap.
Totally fair, totally fair. I feel like, depending on the thing itself, my memory alternates between being a sieve or a trap. Like, there are... actually, earlier today, we had a conversation about something, and I was like, I know we talked about this topic. It was 3 weeks after we started working together a year ago. However,
Yep.
I do not know what I had for breakfast.
But,
It's a mystery.
a sieve can be a trap if you're filling it with cauliflower. So
It's a good
maybe
point.
it's
Well
the
made.
same. Maybe it's the same.
Do we want to look at a merchant just because we've never looked at a merchant before?
Yeah, we've never looked. Yeah.
Ooh.
Buying units is... We should have done this early on. That's kind of cheap.
Also have the ability to reroll.
What's a flying dagger?
It is a trap that only attacks
Okay.
the front, and it hits them for 30 physical damage and applies 3 bleed.
And that's at level 1. So
Mhm.
presumably the upgrade here is pretty stonks.
I'd like if there was an option to see parts of its upgrade path, but I imagine that's
Yeah.
something that just comes with experience over time, and maybe they don't want to overload you with too much information. But
That's true.
having something like a lot of games have, like, if you hold down Alt or Control, it will show you an alternate version of it, so you aren't increasing the initial overhead of looking at it and getting an information overload density kind of situation.
Yeah. You can opt in to the additional info, right? And it makes it feel like you have a bit more agency in the UI, yeah.
Yeah, that's why an
We have-
hour 30 ago I was like, do they have a key binding for this?
Ice Skelly's back, and we skipped him before along with Harpy. And
Mhm.
both of these looked quite good to us. Although, just even more fire weakness. We're just a fire weak squad, dog.
We are really, really weak to fire across the board, but we don't have a really choice between the two of them. They are both negative 50% on their fire. I would put forward that we have the Harpy here offering us something we don't have a lot of, which is air damage. Our only air damage so far is 30, and it's on the bounty attack from the second room. So if an enemy is weak to air, especially in the front line... We also haven't really got debuffs for enemies' damage, which Tiredness covers.
Yeah, that's
and
pretty
I feel
nice.
like we're accomplishing what Frostbite does already with other things like the burn from Wunderbuss.
With the burn. Okay, let's go Harpy. I like that. And we don't have to take anything in these places, right? Like, we certainly could leave, we could renew, but I do like the Harpy here.
Let's take it.
More options.
And I'm assuming renew would just be something like, you know, show me more characters on the screen instead.
I just want to go to so many events. I feel like when I'm playing, I'm old Rhaps when I play a rogue for the first time. I just want to go to every question mark until I see, because you want to see what the stuff is. You can't identify how strong events are until you have some mental intuition about how strong events are, and you build that by going to them, right? So
Definitely.
yeah, it's fun.
I do like going to events as well. Although I will say, in this circumstance, either Plunder is new because we've not done it before, but also the event is new because we haven't done the event. So
True.
I'd be okay-ish with either, although we'd press ourselves
have
to
many
3 units, and we're deciding our
Plunder.
whole party.
Yeah. If we had taken the merchant in the beginning and we had like a surplus of units right now, then plunder becomes much easier, right?
Yeah, let's go with the event as a result of exactly that.
The collector. An enthusiast has tracked an artifact to you and would like to buy it for a very attractive price. He seems to carry other similar objects on his person. One of your employees would be able to steal one from him without him noticing. You can take 2 of the same artifact?
No, the steal is the option down here at the very bottom. It is the Protean Barrel. You can only place 1 regular trap, but it gains multi-action 1 at the start of a dungeon, so it triggers +1 per stack. That is wild. However, we do not have the unit that would be required to steal it, which appears to be some sort of a spiky goblin.
Stealer dude is unfortunately not in the party. 200 gold is a lot, but I like my mirror.
We have
my
an
mirror.
engineer in the next room, which would give us the ability to go for an upgrade there. But the alternative to that is also an event. So we can just go for another event. Refuse this.
Cool. I'm in. More question mark. More?
More questions.
A lost adventurer.
While wandering around in the corridors this morning, you come face to face with a human. He seems as surprised as you are. What are you going to do?
Kill him. Scare him or capture him? Blood, tears, or money? What ails you?
So all we've seen so far as a usage for blood or tears is directly just transmuting them into gold.
I know. Still, which is kind of surprising.
It does surprise me a little bit. Maybe the like major events in the middle where it becomes more of a relevant resource for us. However, we do have in the next space a transmute. However, if we take scare, it would only give us the ability to transmute 2 times, getting 150 gold. So
which we can just get from capture and keep our resources. Yeah.
Exactly. So without knowing how those are spent
to.
otherwise, I think that is how we lean. Ooh, Doctor. That might be a way to spend blood. Stick out your tongue and say, ah. We could even go to the Alchemist and turn 15 blood. No, we can't, because then we actually can't afford to even do anything, so it's just an event.
It's got to be events.
Hell.
Clearly a question mark.
Work accident. A trainee has spilled a burning hot drink on you in front of the blood spice latte machine.
Puck my life. Puck my life. 120 damage taken. Very rude. You can punch this man and collect the blood, or you can insult them and collect their tears. Choose your poison.
I think just to
insult.
Go for parity here.
I agree. Playing this game
seems reasonable.
Okay, we can take another fight. We gotta take one more fight.
Yeah, I just looked across and I was like, 4 minutes. I think 2 hours is.
There's
is
no
the
magic number.
Limit.
I'm, we're just looking for the points where we feel that the peak has successfully taken.
That is very, very, very true. Honestly,
we didn't
like
shuffle.
Yeah, the reason I said 4 hours, 2 hours rather, was actually just because I wanted to have another fight, and that justifies it.
Rhaps is just trying to. I see what you're up to. I get your agenda. I want to fight more. Well, the fights are really fun. In fairness, this is the puzzle part, right? So it's yeah.
Martin, we've seen.
I'm enjoying
before.
this, by the way. I feel that it's best to show not tell generally, and hopefully you can see on our faces when we're having fun, when we're engaged in systems. But this game is. I could totally see sitting down and playing this game.
Yep.
As kind of a nightly thing. Just the pacing of it feels nice. There's enough intrigue and story to where it doesn't feel like it's just pure game, Kind of that's how I called Spelunky 2. That's video game concentrate, right? That's just pure game. And I love it. But there's a little bit more to kind of pull your hands around and sink your teeth into here. But the core puzzle of just setting up for fights is very fun. Looking at the enemies, figuring out what they do, looking at your units. It kind of reminds me of the type of stat seeking that I really like in RPGs, right? Looking at the different items and figuring out how will my build work together and how do I counter this and that. It's a fun gameplay loop. It's nice.
Something I really appreciate about it is all of the systems seem to be designed to be as user-friendly as they possibly can be. And sometimes that means you lose a lot of complexity, but due to the amount of systems that are involved and multi-layered atop each other here, it doesn't necessarily lose that complexity as much. But it does mean at no point have I gone, oh, this is a screen full of numbers.
That's too much. Yeah.
All right, how do I work with them? And it also doesn't feel like I'm going to have to look to, a guide or a wikia in order to find, okay, well, so resistances actually work in this way with this formula. It's like...
Yeah. Just give them as percentages. Yeah. Which works because you're not gearing out your units, so you don't have to have an effective HP system or something. Yeah. And it's interesting because if you think about it, think of how many penalties we've seen. Tiredness, demoralize, slow, chill, burn, bounty, rage. There's several dozen keywords, but it has never once felt overwhelming. I agree.
We have Sehef, which is the only unit we have not seen here. They are Imajahan. They're quite healthy with the 290 there. They have a passive that says they cannot be demoralized. I don't know if that means they cannot be removed from the field with being removed of their moralistic nature.
I think this is specifically the penalty that's called demoralized.
Yes.
Remember, you can lose morale and then,
Yeah, it does seem like it's very likely that one with the red highlight on it and seeing the debuffs have that. We've also got a backline attacking hit there that is 59 air damage rather, applies tiredness 2, and a skill that gives 25% of one hero's maximum morale back after a fight once.
Wow.
So it feels like
So this is like the morale unit.
Feels like maybe we do want to do some morale damage in this fight, but not much, because we want him to try and activate that skill before we start using morale.
Right, that's a good point. Yeah. Which we can do with Grogmar AoE. One thing is, we just got Sadrak, but the backline is very resistant to air.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know about the front or the rest.
And we're also not resistant to air on Sadrak. Despite being an air attacker, they are also weak to air.
Psychics beat psychics. Dragons beat dragons.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
It was always complicated all of my working out as a kid. So the front line here, Marden is weak to fire. We have Underboss, which to me just says, get in the party, nerd.
Get in the bus. The
Get
nerd bus.
Underboss.
Press the button. Press the button. Press the button. I'm just gonna stand up at some point. There's just gonna be an empty seat for the end of. There's gonna be like 30 minutes at the end of a Take a Peek or at the end of a ladder streak, and there's just a chair.
Oh,
and you just hear me yelling from the kitchen. My poor dog is woken up and is totally confused. What's going on? I'm the boss. Are you kidding me?
I'm gonna spend 30 minutes telling worse puns, like increasingly bad puns, to the chair. Best believe.
The chair is a good listener.
It's true. Very seldom
Never
pipes
in
up.
stream.
This has 10 nature resistance. It's just like, do we go double tank? Because I'm assuming we're kind of locking Sadrak out of this. Although, Marden does have air weakness. We could try and use Sadrak to just remove Marden.
Put a mid. Put a mid and run one tank. Spice. So who's our tank? Is it Reesri or Grogmar? If we want to do morale, then it needs to be Grogmar, right?
Mm-hmm. I think we do want to do a little bit of morale damage here.
Seems smart enough.
Although, actually, we know from the morale system that enemies gain morale back if they are the final hit on a character. And we're not going to kill them with this party. We're trying to weaken them.
Right. So maybe we just ignore morale entirely and just go for kills.
That's what I'm feeling.
Oh, that's too much work anyway, mate.
Can't make them demoralized, Risley here has the ice damage, which isn't necessarily good. Also has a backline hit, which would be decent damage on Sehef at the very back. Although, maybe we just want to assassinate Marden, and so we use Grogmar.
That's pretty smart, since they've run a squishy frontliner, which this is the first time we've seen it. It's like a reverse party, actually. They put their tank in the back. Are they trying to make fun of us? Haha, they only know how to assassinate backliners. Idiots. Reverse party time. I think we might be being mocked.
Maybe they were trying... No, maybe they're not even mocking us. Maybe they're paying homage to our last fight where we put Underboss in the front accidentally.
You think the adventurers are paying respect to our tactics?
Yeah. I don't know. I'm always looking for the
That's
the
awesome.
positive. There's our circular saw still. We have the bone catapult for applying demoralize.
Bonapult.
It's not going to demoralize Seth at all. It could be Bonapult after a fight. Yeah, so it won't restore morale until it ends a fight.
The reason I'm thinking Bonapult too is just like, if we're just going for kills, then having bleed set up already, significant bleed coming into this fight will help us stack to the moon. If we're gonna go freaky fresh zygomatic, bleed and kills express.
I do
Man,
like
double
going
tank
for
is
the
so
bleed
wicked.
and kill express here. Do we want to also... I mean, both of the backliners, assuming that Marden is dead, are weak to nature. So suddenly Ulna seems like a relatively good option here, just for the individual target. Or we could even just go area of effect with Louis still. Louis not bad here either. Bit faster, a bit more survivable than Ulna.
We basically are going Ulna if we're using the single target. Otherwise, we just put Louis out, and that gives us a chance to maybe do bounty stuff again for these fully moralized units. I guess bounty doesn't matter at all. We don't need to play around the system. I just like to say it, I think. I just like to say bounty. And to think about what it means.
Nice word.
Let's run Ulna and nuke someone.
I like it.
Come get some.
We're going to just take him out of orbit.
There's your buff. Okay. Ooh, Mon isn't... Wait. Mon is 5 slower than Sadrak. We're actually going to get, like, usable negative damage here.
Wow, nice.
Oh my god, it is not going to be hard to remove that guy.
That lad is going to be super dead. Pocket watch, it stopped the damage.
It did. It did indeed.
Pocket watch. Pocket mirror. Pocket device. It's certainly a utility that goes in your pocket.
It's definitely pocketed. Okay,
gonna
so
kill him?
this damage dealt is increased 5% of maximum life. So 5% of 200 is 10. The cleaver by itself does 35 physical damage, which is modified negative 50, negative. Okay, cool. Yeah, I think we go with this because that plus the bleed, this unit's dying before it gets another action. And in fact, we can even just
Do the AoE.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're hasted.
Ooh. Probably Fireball here just because there's resistance on Valkrom.
Okay.
Fear of the Dead
'cause
would
Fear
be...
of the Dead, they're going to get
nice.
totally cured, right? And
Don't
we've
know.
already done enough morale damage because of the kill.
Is there...
Do pocket watch.
Is there any chance
There's
that
no way we win here. There's no way we win here. There's no way. That would Are we too OP? Is it possible that we are Imba? No, once we lose our tank here, it's all going to straight to heck.
In a handbasket. You best believe it's going there in a handbasket.
Mm-hmm.
Overall, more damage.
Yeah, and we've still been hasted, right? Oh my gosh. Maybe we are the best.
Finger in the air. Swag, swag, swag.
Oh god.
Are you familiar with that one?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm the best. Bigger
it's so-
number now.
Standing on a car. Swag, swag, swag.
Oh my god. Did we get him? Did I win? Are you winning, son?
We're doing okay. We're only gonna have the harpy for the final round, so the traps might do
Solo
it for
carry.
us.
Solo carry traps. If only we could pass our bounty back to the front. Oh my gosh. Oh god, it's air. We hate air. All right. Well, that man has like 1 life. Is there a death storm mechanic in this game?
Please.
He just looked at the trap and died.
Nope, I'm not doing anything with that. I'm not putting up with that. I'm just gonna...
Yeah.
Second party
You
doesn't
should've
even get
never
to
come
fight.
here. Listen, you don't get paid if you don't fight. Second party. Okay.
Oh,
Oh,
man.
man.
We...
GG, Rhaps.
GG. We have some options here. I will quickly go through them, but I don't think we have to pick as a result of the whole that's the final fight we're going to be fighting. There's an oil
But
cauldron.
we've got a save slot. You might continue this. What if you did it on your stream?
That is
possible.
theoretically possible. You have an oil cauldron here with an AoE for everyone, 20 fire damage. Also applies fire weakness, reducing their resistance
Ooh.
by 40.
Undabus?
We have a mortar doing the same to just the backline, but it gets burn and 30 fire damage. And then a furnace, 5 fire damage, and applies 2 burn in AoE. Because that's the maximum life modifier right there.
I kind of like oil cauldron and sometimes do second room Undabus and just obliterate someone.
Especially because Zundabus has the focus at the moment. You can see their motivation has dropped a little bit. We have the ability to throw them out here, and almost certainly should. Nylik is not back, but you go to the garrison for a moment. None of
just
the
go
rest
take
of
a breather.
those can die.
Honestly,
from the
what we
next
could
encounter.
do is you put them in room 2 and you're just swapping who's losing motivation since lots of times we're actually killing in room 2.
Also looks like we're being told that What is it? Archivist is saying Tarball is new. Heroes affected with burn lose 30 speed. We haven't seen that. Is it the
Maybe we
talent
just
tree?
unlocked it.
Yeah?
Maybe we just unlocked it, right? By
That's-
something that we did. Win some number of fights.
That definitely may be it here. Because this isn't going to be a fight, I do want to at least know what the doctor does, because we've
Say
not...
ah.
Say ah.
To the doctor, to the monster doctor.
Oh, just straight up heals you.
There you go.
Therapist is an employee morale review done by a specialist. So that's going to be motivation gain as well, I have to imagine. But for the moment, because I guess, yep, that'll take us back to the main menu. Give
We
you
have to
something
take
end on.
the teeth out of us. We'll just sit here and we'll play a full run. It'll be Tuesday before we finish.
Definitely the case. How did you feel about that? Do you have any couple of learnings that you've taken away from that you might clarify?
I really enjoyed that. I think I suspect it's going to be a bit more of a campaign style game. Not necessarily an 80-hour campaign, but it may not be a single sitting rogue necessarily. And that I didn't expect that. But I think it suits it, right? Because it means that individual battles can be very approachable. Like, it's not 16 floors and you only do 3 of them, right? It's 2 fight rooms, 2 trap rooms, a spell room, and a master.
Yep.
And so you've got a small enough space that you can keep it all in your head, which makes it actually really work as a puzzle. It allows you to consider those resistances, consider the moves, consider your units, to where you feel like you're kind of solving it instead of just working by numbers and margins. And so I really liked the pacing. I enjoyed the kind of puzzle of exploring. I feel that this is the kind of game where, in general, I think that we enjoy things more based on our investment in them, right? The more you invest in a team in sports, the more that you're excited when they win. The more that we invest in a show, the more that we're excited by the development of the characters. And the same is true for games. The more you play, the more you build up almost a relationship with that game. This game is going to reward that a lot. To start to know what more of the units are, to have an intuition for what the upgrades are, the costs, what a Blood and Tears do. We don't know. We just played this game for 2 hours and we never had an interaction with Blood and Tears other than pawning them off to some stinky alchemist, right? So, like, I definitely think that I had a ton of fun in 2 hours. I bet I would have a ton of fun in 20.
Yep.
That's my suspicion.
Yeah, I can only see myself enjoying the game more as it goes on longer. That is a really good point. I was going to also make a point about the mental overhead of the game being, like, they are making efforts in every area to make sure the mental overhead of the game is low enough that you can do what you said, fit it all in your head, solve these puzzles with all of the pieces in mind at the same time, rather than having to look at a specific subsect and go, okay, let's solve that, and then see if we can put that up into a different solve, you know?
Imagine if there were 4 or 5 enemies. Like, just a simple change, and now it's really hard to conceptualize the fights.
Yep. Honestly, like, most of my learnings were things that we talked about over the course of it, right? I'm not necessarily sure I have many learning takeaways. I have design takeaways. Many that I deeply appreciate this style of you are the bad guy, because it doesn't... Yes, you have your master, right? And that's the kind of character you are attempting to play, but they're not necessarily always going to reach the master, right? The master is kind of closer to a pyre, right? If you want to think about it like that. Like, it's this thing that...
Because that health damage is permanent.
Yes. And to me, it feels... Oh god, that is right. Monster Train, you are technically playing baddies, but, like, at least baddies in a traditional sense of the demons are probably the bad guys, but then the angels. Anyway, that's a completely different story for a completely different day. However...
That's a very long video and pretty long book. A few of them.
A fair few. I still not necessarily dug into the lore. But... the thing that is clarified for me a lot is you usually in those circumstances don't let your units die. But here it's encouraged because you are not designing the battles, you are designing the dungeon overall. That kind of removal of yourself being directly associated with exclusively a unit or exclusively a master, and instead this meta level dungeon to me is really interesting, and it takes this into a new realm away from other games. Like a corollary that might fit is Iritus.
Yeah. And I love that you are talking about that, because one of the Take a Peek games that has really stuck with me is Astronarch. And so I was just talking about this the other day about what I call acceptable losses. And it's a big weakness in a lot of tactics games, in my opinion, is that tactics, TRPGs or SRPGs, tend to be fairly complicated. You've got that full grid, you've got all these different units, there's a lot to manage, and they also tend to have no acceptable losses. It's very frequently the case that if somebody dies, that's a permanent loss for you, which can create really frustrating gameplay loops. And so I love in games like Astronarch when there's a system by which your units can die. In Urtuk, if one of your units dies, they become injured first and then they can die again later. These are systems that say there's a cost to dying. You lose morale, you lose motivation, you lose medicine, you lose resources, but it's acceptable. You can do it. It's a tactical component. And I think that when there are acceptable losses in games, it allows the game to be deeper and it makes it easier to enjoyably play it. You'll do less save scumming and less like kind of frustration with the game.
Yeah, it opens up a lot more design space, and no longer do you have the kind of like, I have to play this on Iron Man, otherwise I'm going to feel like I need to go back to save.
Yeah.
You know, Major General would be one of the examples for me. The man-at-arms who did everything he could. Godspeed, good soldier.
Was that one of your Darkest Dungeon units?
Yes, I actually wrote like you know the Major General song Gilbert and Sullivan, right?
No.
I am the very
maybe I
model of
do.
a modern Major General. I'm information, vegetable,
Yes,
animal,
okay.
and mineral. I know the things within the that one.
Okay.
I wrote half of that as a parody about my character, Major General, right? And the units, the relics they were using and things like that. And I got so much joy out of writing it, and the idea of, oh, I'm going to make this, and then I'm going to make like a clip reel of like different Major General moments from the series. Right. But there were 135 episodes in that series to dig through, 75 of which featured Major General in some fashion.
Just never came together.
Exactly.
Too much.
I didn't think about the fact that the clip show that I was going to put behind the song, I put all of my effort into the song, and then I reached the clip show and I was like, I'm out of gas. I can't make this now.
Nope, I'm done. You can do it, audience. You can make the thing.
But I loved them enough to write half of a song about them, so definitely Major General in my mind. But for the moment, because I imagine we could continue talking for another hour.
That was really fun. This was a good one. This was a good. I'm glad. I've been waiting to play this game for a year. So maybe more.
This
is cool.
This is one of three rather so far in my mind that if I had time, I would like immediately after this start a series on it. I don't necessarily have time, but if you harass me enough, maybe I make time. I don't know.
Oh God, that's a horrible precedent.
I know. But people said it about Astronarch, and then suddenly I was like, ooh, I mean, I was trying to make time for Loop Hero, but maybe I can make time for Astronarch. And then I didn't end up making time for that either. There's a lot of games out at the moment.
2021 hit the gas pretty hard. There's no doubt on the games
really
front.
Did.
Yeah.
But for the moment, my name's Rhapsody. His name has been Sneaky Teak. Or let's go with Rhaps and Teak. My name's been Rhaps. His name's been Teak. This has been Rhaps and Teak Take a Peek. It's been Legend of Keepers as well. You can find all the links you're looking for in the description down below, as well as the Steam store page for the game. It is coming out of its early access period into full release on the 29th of April.
Soon.
Hopefully you've been enjoying yourselves. And hopefully we'll see you next week.